Good morning, everyone. I would like to call this meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Carrie Linklater, and I am your chairperson this morning. I am joined on the panel this morning by Ms. Gail Anderson and Mr. Brent McIntyre. Our city assessor this morning is Mr. Stephen Lobenstein, and our administrative personnel is Ms. Nicole Carnegie. To the Zoom participants of the hearing, please note you are placed in the waiting room until your property is called upon. When it is your turn, you will be admitted into the meeting. Kindly follow along on the City of Winnipeg's Board of Revision YouTube channel for the hearing process. Once the host admits you into the hearing, please close or mute your YouTube player. You will then be permitted to speak with respect to your property. Once your hearing has concluded, you can leave the meeting. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is appointed annually by City Council and is independent of it and the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. And as information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. This morning, we will be hearing items 1 through 9 on the docket. And Ms. Carnegie, please affirm the assessor and the applicant's testimony.
Thank you. Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Stephen Lobenstein.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Mr. Van Bruggen, please state your full name.
Thank you very much. My name is Wesley Van Bruggen.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Thank you very much.
Mr. Sharples, please state your full name.
Good morning, Grayson Sharples.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Van Bruggen and Mr. Sharples, and good morning to you, Mr. Lobenstein.
Good morning.
Morning.
And whenever you are ready, Mr. Lobenstein, with your brief, you can proceed.
Sure, I assume we're just following the order of the docket today.
Yes, we are.
For 2529 Inkster Boulevard, the roll number is 14099963100. We have an assessed value of $4,724,000. Moving down to the property descriptions on page 1, you can see that there is one building, one premise, a number of stories is 2 because there is a small mezzanine in this area or for this building. The actual wall height is 28 feet and the zoning is M2. We have a land area of 120,919 square feet and a gross floor and a leasable area of 29,730 square feet for a land to plan of 4.67. Moving down to my page 2, you can see that they are compliant. They have the request for information has been met. There is a lease on this property by Waterous Power Systems. The lease started in 2008 for 15 years. They're leasing the whole building at $15 a square foot. It's stated on the mailer. I'll move to the mailer later on in my presentation. Moving to page 3, you can see where it's located. This is located just off of Route 90 and Inkster. Moving further down, you can see a view from the top of the property. You can see that they have access from 2 areas. They can get it off Inkster and off the parallel road there, which is Innsbruck Drive. Again, you can see on the bottom of page 5, they have 7 overhead doors for side loading at the building. So moving to my page 6, this is our income workup. We're using the leasable area, as mentioned before, of 29,730 square feet. We're using a model rent of $9.21 a square foot, potential rent of $273,813. We're applying a model vacancy of 4%, model vacancy, our expenses of 3%, and a shortfall of $3.85 a square foot. Excuse me. So this gives us a net operating income of $250,396. We're then applying a capitalization rate of 5.3% to get our capitalized value of $4,724,000. So moving to my page 7, you can see our rent comparables. These are actual net rents in the market. This is what we use to build our model off of. So these rents, when we're looking at rents for this type of building, we want to look at age, square footage, wall height's important, of course. And then we also want to see if it's up to market. We want to see the lease starts and the lease terms. So the lease starts range from 2019 to 2020. So they're fairly modern or fairly new leases. The lease terms range from about 1 year all the way up to 10 years. For the square footages, for the leasable areas, it's similar to the subject property. They're right around 30,000 square feet. They range from 30,000 all the way up to 39,000 square feet. The wall heights are quite similar to the subject property as well, although one is lower at 14 feet, but the other ones are range between 24 feet to 27 feet. The effective years built are fairly similar to the subject property. We have 2 that were built in 2007, one in 1999, and the other 2 were built in the early 1980s. And then you can see the net rents on the further side there. So they range from $9.08 a square foot all the way up to $11.45 a square foot. So they're right in the range of our model at $9.21. Maybe actually they're a touch higher, some of them. So moving to our page 9, this is our capitalization rate chart. These are model-derived capitalization rates that we apply to our model net operating income. So you can see that they range between 5.5 and 7.45 for the 20th to 80th percentile. This property at 5.3% falls just outside of the 20th percentile, mostly due to its age, built in 2008. It's a fairly modern new building. So we have given it, or the model has given it, a lower cap rate at 5.3%. I'm just going to get you to scroll a little bit down to my page 15. This is where they have the mailer. So they filled out the mailer that we have sent, but they've also produced their own income statement. So I'm going to go to that one, which is on page 17. They're showing you a rental income. They're showing you recoveries for a total income of $524,390. And then they're showing you some of their expenses, and they have a net operating income of $431,000. Again, I'm going to scroll down to their page 18 where they have their rent roll. I'm sorry I put this in poorly. You might have to rotate it to see it better. On the bottom, on line 2529, it says net lease. They're stating net lease at $15 here. And further down is just our COVID survey that we sent out with all the properties this past in 2020. So we feel the value. Sorry, just give me a moment here. Of $4,724,000 is fair and equitable and should be confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lovenstein. Mr. Van Bergen, I understand, are you representing the owner this morning on this property?
That's correct.
All right. Thank you. If you'd like to proceed with questions.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. If we could turn to page 7, please. And just let me know when you're there. Excellent. Yes. Thank you. So the first lease that we have on this table, 2475 Day Street, that would be a heavy industrial steel manufacturing plant. Would that be correct?
Yeah, it's got. Give me a moment here. I wouldn't say it's heavy manufacturing. It is. It's got M2 zoning, so it wouldn't be able to be heavy manufacturing. So it is general manufacturing.
Do they do steel production there, or steel manufacturing, or steel fabrication there?
I'm not 100% sure they do. Let me see what the yeah, it's Vera Steel Ltd. So I don't know if they actually do manufacturing in there, but they definitely are part of a steel company.
So would it be fair to say they would probably the building would probably also include rails for craneways as well as heavy cranes for moving around steel?
Again, I don't know what's inside that building. I haven't inspected it, but if there is rails in there, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to reflect the rent. That could be something the owner has put in. Or not the owner, the tenant.
But a situation where you would have cranes, heavy cranes and craneways, you would expect that would you expect a rent in a building that has that sort of infrastructure to be higher or lower than or the same as what you would expect in a building without those items?
Well, in terms of manufacturing, heavy manufacturing buildings, we usually notice a lower rent due to the fact that the building is usually more depreciated. It gets more wear and tear than your typical, storage warehouse. But
okay, 130 Lawson Crescent. That would be Fort Garry Brewing's in there. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Do they have a tasting room in there?
I've been in there. I did a tour of there. They don't necessarily have a tasting room. They have on the second level, they have an office and like a large conference room where you can go and try beers. And but I think it doubles also as a conference room.
Okay. Would there be any additional facilities within there that you wouldn't see in a typical industrial property?
Well, they have large vats for brewing their beer.
Do you think that would have any impact in terms of the industrial infrastructure required for brewing beer? Would that have an impact in terms of the rent paid?
I think so. Like after touring this building, with not too long ago, it was back in 2021. They have a large office mezzanine area. They have a typical storage warehouse area where they store a lot of their beers. And then they have a brewing center. So, that's the thing about industrial properties. They can be multifaceted, used for many different types of businesses.
Okay. All right. Would you say that the type of the property that we're looking at has overhead garage doors? Obviously, is used more as a service garage. 130 Lawson would be more used as manufacturing or storage. Would those be similar in terms of the type of tenants that they would be attracting?
Well, again, as I spoke to before, industrial buildings can be used for a multitude of different things. Yeah, this one definitely, the property we're looking at today definitely has more overhead doors than the comparison of 130 Lawson for sure.
Okay. If we can jump to page 9. And taking a look here, when we take a look at industrial properties A and B, and we take a look at Collier, CBRE, and Cushman Wakefield, would you agree that the rents or that the capitalization rates they're indicating would all be higher than what's been applied to the property?
Oh, without a doubt, yeah. We've applied a lower capitalization rate of 5.3%.
And the rent and these are the capitalization rates that the various brokerages are indicating are present in the market. Is that correct for Collier, CBRE, and Cushman Wakefield?
That's correct. That's what they're indicating.
Okay, all right. Excellent. I think that concludes my questions. Grayson, unless you have any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. McIntyre, did you have any questions for the assessor?
I just have one question on your cap rate chart. This is a single tenant building, is it not?
That's correct, yes.
So in fact, Colliers and CBRE and Cushman Wakefield don't have any cap rates for a single tenant building, do they?
They haven't distinguished, no. They just have industrial A and industrial B. They haven't said if they're multi or single tenanted.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question.
Ms. Anderson?
Just wondering when the last inspection of this property was.
It might have been back when the building was first constructed in 2008. I went through the notes and I haven't seen any newer or any inspections after that.
Okay, and do you have a building permit on file, or?
Yeah, there would be a building permit, sure.
So there was an inspection after the building permit, right?
Correct. Yeah, we'd go to make sure the building was complete and inspect it. Yes.
Okay. Okay, and I just noted with the actual lease that was noted in your presentation that the footage was 29,240, and then the leasable footage is 29,730. Did you notice that variance?
I did not know.
Okay.
I mean, ours would have came from the permits. So.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Lobenstein, so you yourself did not inspect this property, correct?
I have not inspected it, no.
Okay. And did you inspect any of the properties on the docket this morning?
Not to my recollection, not for this hearing, no. But maybe in the past I have throughout my career. I won't really know until we actually get into the property itself.
All right, I thank you. And page 6 of your brief is all model driven, correct?
My income workup is all model driven, yes.
Okay. And just on your rent comparables on page, sorry, I'm just going up here. On page 7, you have given 2, 4, 5, 6 rent comparables. Which would you say is your best?
Well, I'd probably be pointing to 300 Salto and 1595 Buffalo due to they're very similar in square footage and they're very similar in wall height and age built.
Great, thank you. That is all my questions. Mr. Van Bergen, if you would like to give us your brief.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. If the board can turn with me to page 3, we'll get started, and just let me know when you're there.
I'm there.
Excellent. Perfect. So this, as mentioned, the subject property is an industrial warehouse situated on a 2.8 acre land parcel located in the North Inkster industrial area. The property was constructed in 2008 and has been assessed using the income approach to value. As mentioned, the property has been assessed at a value of $4,724,000. M&P is requesting a value of $3,691,000. If the board will turn with me to page 4, we just have the current assessment information from the City of Winnipeg Assessment Department. Here, just highlighting the assessed value for the property use code, which is warehouse, the assessed land area, which is 2.8 acres, and then some property influences. The board will turn with me to page 5. On page 5, we have a requested assessment. So as mentioned, the property has been assessed using the income approach. The rental rate that has been applied to the subject property is a rate of $9.28. Or sorry, $9.21. MVP is requesting that rental rate to be reduced to $8.50. Additionally, the capitalization rate that's been applied to the property is 5.3%. MVP is requesting a capitalization rate of 6.25% to be applied. Using the rental rate of $8.50, as well as the requested capitalization rate of 6.25%, MVP that's resulted in MVP's requested value of $3,691,000 for this property. The board will turn with me to page 6. Page 6, we have the characteristics and physical condition of the property. So here we just have the property summary. So this was provided by the City of Winnipeg Assessment Department to show the parameters which were utilized to determine the assessed value of that property. Page 8, if the board will turn to, we just have a map of that property. So we have an assessment map provided by the City of Winnipeg Assessment website that you see on the top there, just showing the location of the property. And then below that, we have a satellite map, again, just showing the location where that property is within the city. Page 9, we have some exterior photos of the property. You can see these pictures on page 9, page 10, and then page 11, we have 2 overhead views of that property as well. If the board will turn with me to page 12, we'll get started with the information. So as mentioned, the property has been assessed with a rental rate of $9.21. MVP has analyzed leasing from similar sized warehouses and determined that the rental rate, in our opinion, should fall at between $8 to $9.08 per square foot. Below, we have provided the table, so we've used 4 leases that you can see. So the 4 leases, one is from 110 Sutherland Ave, one is from 1695 Sargent Ave, 333 DeBeat Street, and then 10 Hutchings Street. You can see that we've chosen properties that are a little bit older. However, when we take a look at the leasable area is all very similar to the subject property. You can see the leasable areas used range from just a little over 29,000 square feet to 39,000 square feet. We've taken a look at the wall height, making sure that the wall height is similar to the subject property. So the subject property has a 28-foot clear wall height. The properties used when we're looking at leasing range from 23 to 25 feet. And then we take a look at the transaction date, again, much the same as what has been used by the assessment department. We've tried to use leases that are fairly close in timelines. So we've used leasing that started in June 2018 to April 2020. And here we can see the rental rates for each one of these range from $8 to $9.08. So there is a common lease between the City of Winnipeg and M&P. That would be the lease at 110 Sutherland Ave, there at $9.08. When we take a look at the leasing, we can see that that the average of these leases is $8.37, as well as median leasing. The median of these leases is $8.20. Taking a look at these leases, it's M&P's opinion that a reasonable rental rate to apply to the property would be $8.50, which is what's driving our request. The board will turn with me to the next page, page 13. Page 13, we have sales of similar properties. So again, what we've done is we've taken a look at the assessed value. So the assessed value, the property has been assessed at a rate of $158.90 per square foot, which is an increase of 39.52% from the previous assessment cycle. M&P has analyzed market transactions of similar properties and determined that they're transacting within the market at rates roughly between 107 to 123 a square foot. Here we provided 5 properties in our table. You can see these properties there, 1305 King Edward, 1791 Dublin, and just for the board's reference, 1791 Dublin, I believe, is a single-tenanted property. We have 333 DeBeats, which again, I believe is a single-tenanted property, 78 Hutchings, and then 170 Eagle, which again is a single-tenanted property. When we take a look at these properties, we can see these properties transacted between 2016 and 2018. We were focusing on the the year or the building area of the properties. You can see that these building areas range from a low of just a little over 30,000 square feet all the way up to 34,000 square feet. So fairly tight within the property what we're looking at. We can see that when we take a look at the sale price, that the average sale price is $113.41, and the median sale price is $110.96. So when we take a look at this again, this provides some support that the property has been overassessed at almost $160 a square foot. I'm just going to jump down to page 14. Page 14, what we've done is we've also looked at the capitalization rate for these properties. So the property has been assessed, subject property as mentioned has been assessed with a capitalization rate of 5.3%. Using sales identified in the section, it's our opinion that the capitalization rate of these similar properties are selling between 5.92% and 6.94%. We provided the table below there. So for the board to note, to derive the capitalization rate, as much as M&P would love to use the actual leasing of the property, unfortunately that's not available to us. So to arrive at what a reasonable capitalization rate would be, we've used a methodology similar to what the City of Winnipeg has done in their capitalization rate model. We've used typical vacancy rates, expense allowances, and shortfalls, as outlined in the City of Winnipeg's guidelines for the valuation of income-producing properties. For the rental rates for 1305 King Edward, 1791 Dublin, and 170 Eagle, M&P used an $8 per square foot rental rate, which is slightly lower than the requested $8.50 requested for the property, and reflective of what we think that leasing of these properties would be in the market. For 333 DeBeats, M&P used the actual rental rate of $8.25 for the property. We have a lease showing that property leased for $8.25. And then finally, for 78 Hutchings, M&P used an actual rental rate of $8.15, which came from a recent lease of a neighboring property, similar in size at 10 Hutchings Street. Given these capitalization rates, M&P has calculated an average capitalization rate of 6.52% and a median capitalization rate of 6.58%. It's M&P's opinion that a reasonable rental rate for the property would be a capitalization rate of 6.25 based on these sales. Again, as mentioned, the property at 333 DeBeats, 1791 Dublin, and 170 Eagle are all single tenanted buildings. You can see that the sale price for these, or the calculated capitalization rates for these properties, range from 6.58% to 6.94%. If the board will jump back with me just one page to page 13. On page 113, what we've done on the bottom of that page is using M&P's requested rental rate of $8.50, as well as using our requested capitalization rate of 6.25%. That results in our requested value of $3,691,000. When we take a look at what the value of this would be on a per square foot basis, is $124.18 per square foot, which in our opinion aligns more closely with what we're seeing within the market. As mentioned again previously, we're seeing that similar properties are selling, similar size properties, similar location, are selling within the market at rates ranging from $108 to $117 or $123 a square foot. So we're certainly on the top end of that range. It is a newer property, so that's kind of that would be why we feel that would be a reasonable value for that. If the board will move with me to starting on page 18, and just let me know when you're there.
I'm there.
I'm there.
Excellent. So on page 18, we have pictures of the leasing, the buildings used within our leasing analysis. So the first one is 110 Sutherland Ave. Then we have 1695 Sargent Ave. Below we have 333 DeBeat Street and 10 Hutchings Street. So again, just to show the pictures of what these buildings look like as we're getting the leasing from, you can see that they are similar in nature to the subject property. On page 20, we have the support for those leases. And then starting on page 21, we have the sales information. So these are, this is supporting the sales that we've used, just providing pictures of those properties. The first one we have is 1305 King Edward. We can see that this is a bit of an older property. I believe the property is 1991 year of construction. However, when we take a look at the building construction related permits, If you look 1, 2, 3, 4 up from the bottom, you can see that there's a fairly significant interior renovation done on the property in 2007. So obviously that's going to be changing that effective year on that property, as there were quite a few upgrades in that property. Page 22, we have 1791 Dublin. On the bottom, page 22, we have 333 De Beats. We also have the lease for that property. You can see that lease for 333 was signed Jan 1st, 2019, 32,351 square feet, 24 clear wall height. So similar in nature to the subject property. We can see that the rent that was achieved was $8.25. So that's why we've used that $8.25 in our capitalization rate analysis. On page 23, we have 78 Hutchings. Again, we've provided a picture of that property there. Below, we have a picture of where the location of 10 Hutchings and 78 Hutchings are. So they're in very close proximity, actually almost side by side. We can see 10 Hutchings. This lease was signed in February 1st, 2020. 29 or almost 30,000 square feet, similar in size, 25 foot clear wall height, and the rent that they achieved was $8.15. So again, we use that $8.15 in our capitalization rate analysis when determining a capitalization rate. And then finally, we have on page 24, 170 Eagle. Starting on page 25, continuing on page 31, we have the supporting documentation. So the sales that we've used came from the Johnson report, and we provide just lease extracts from page 25 to 31 of that report in case there are questions, just as support for the board there. Starting at page 33, continuing on page 55, we have the City of Winnipeg's income-producing properties 2023 general assessment information. We provided that, and we can certainly dive in if there's any questions. It's, again, just more supporting documentation. With that, that concludes my presentation. I welcome any questions from the board or from the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lobenstein, questions?
Just a few. In doing your review of this property, did you have access to the actual contract rent in place or the lease in place?
The $15 that was given that it was signed in 2008. We didn't feel it was particularly relevant when looking at a market value for the valuation date of April 1st, 2021.
So the actual lease in place. So you would not consider the net operating income for this property, what they're actually producing, to be a good example of what this building can produce.
Well, we agree that the lease was signed at $15 in 2018. However, it's a 15-year lease, so that lease is going to be over soon. Again, I think a better indication would be what recent leasing is occurring within the market, as well as what recent transactions are within the market, to try to determine what a reasonable value for the property would be.
Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson, questions?
Just in regards to the property on Eagle, it's zoned differently. It's zoned M1. Can you advise if you feel there would be any impact in using that as a comparator?
No, again, we wouldn't really think that in our opinion, there wouldn't be much difference in terms of buildings that sell in Zone 1 or M1 or M2 land. We feel that they would be fairly comparable to each other when they're transacted.
Okay, and just one more question. Did you inspect the property? Were you on site?
No, unfortunately, I've never gone through the property.
Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation. Those are all my questions.
Thank you.
Mr. McIntyre.
I have no questions, thank you.
Thank you. I also have no questions. Mr. Van Bruges, do you have a wish for a summation on this property?
Madam Chair, sorry, and maybe I should have indicated this at the beginning. There is a rebuttal documents that was sent yesterday.
I have moved it to your folders, and I will send it to Mr. Lobenstein now.
Okay. Mr. Lobenstein, do you have it?
I'll let you know when I get it.
Right.
I still haven't received it.
It's in transition.
I now have it.
Perfect, thank you.
If you would like to proceed, Mr. Van Bruggen.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So some of this information has already been addressed through questioning. So if the board will jump with me to page 5, we'll just deal with anything that hasn't been addressed. And just let me know when you're there.
I think we're all there.
Thank you. All right, so this is a rebuttal to the third lease that has been used by the city. So they've used a lease for 300 Saltix Crescent. The lease that had been used by the city was signed in November 1st, 2019, 30,000 square feet, and at a rate of $9.49. In looking around, it's MNP's opinion that this may be a non-arm's length lease. What we found that the tenant within the building is Login. We can see that the Login actually announced in 2000 and I believe it was 8 that they had constructed a new 30,000 square foot state-of-the-art facility in Winnipeg, Manitoba in October 2007. The facility serves as the company's head office and Western Distribution Center. So we can see that Login had announced that they had they had completed the construction of that property. We provide on the bottom there just a Google search for 300 Saltix Crescent, showing that Login is the tenant within the building. And then when we go down on the next page, we can see Login has indicated their corporate office and distribution center at 300 Saltix Crescent. So again, when we take a look at that, it does bring forward some questions about, since we know that they were involved in the construction of the building when it was originally constructed, as well as still located within the building, it does bring forward questions of whether or not that is a clear non-arm's length lease, as there does appear to be something else going on there. On page 7, we provided the press release, just where we had found that information about the construction of the building. Page 8, we have 1595 Buffalo Place. So the property has been significantly upgraded in 2015, and based on the City of Winnipeg's building permit search, it looks like significant work has continued to be done on the property. Additionally, while MNP does not have the information to indicate which unit in the building the lease is coming from, we have determined that one of the spaces used by a tenant, Precision ADM Inc., is used more in a R&D sense than a typical industrial use. So again, we provided a picture that we found for the interior of the space. It looks like this is a steel. They use 3D printing to design and develop metal pieces. So again, it's quite a high tech system that they're running within one of the spaces within this building. Here on page 9, we just have an excerpt from Artis REIT, giving some more information about the property. You can see that it's identified as a premier warehouse distribution facility, originally constructed in 1963, expanded in 2000, and then an extensive exterior renovation and redevelopment was done in 2015. So again, when we take a look at this, just in terms of the tenant with some of the ways that some of the spaces are being used within there, it'd be our opinion that space used as an R&D lab would probably command a higher rental rate than what we would see for the subject property. As well, we know that there has been a significant upgrade within the building over the years. Starting on page 12, we have provided the search for the construction-related permits. for this property for 1595 Buffalo. Again, we can see that there have been a number of upgrades to the property, I believe going all the way back to 2000 in terms of various adjustments and upgrades, both interiorly and exteriorly to the property that have been done over that time frame. So again, significantly improving that property. And we can even see that that is reflected in the fact that the city has upgraded the effective year on this property. So again, when we take a look at these, particularly these two properties, it would be our opinion that they would be, there is something else. It does look like there are other factors going on, and it would be our opinion that maybe those leases are not the most representative of what we would expect similar leasing to occur within the market. With that, I conclude my rebuttal. I welcome any questions from the board or from the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lobenstein, questions?
So your concern is that these buildings have been upgraded to a higher standard, yet the building we're looking at today was built in 2008, a fairly modern building. Would that just, most of these buildings would have been upgraded to meet the standard of the building we're looking at today?
No, the concern is not necessarily the age of the building. So our concern for 200 Saltex Crescent is mainly that whether it looks like it may be non-arm's length lease. We can see that Login was involved in the construction of the building back in 2007. We can see they're still within the building. So again, that brings some questions of whether or not that lease is truly arm's length or there is between related parties. And then for 1595 Buffalo Crescent, there's two concerns. One, we can see that there had been significant upgrades to the building. Understanding that the property we're looking at today is a little newer, but we can also see that there are some units within the building that are being used for more of an R&D purpose. So an R&D lab would be, in our opinion, would generate a superior rent than what we'd be seeing for our property. So again, unfortunately, without knowing exactly which unit that lease comes from, it's difficult to say, but we do know that there are certainly some tenants within the building that are using their space for more of an R&D purpose.
You also stated today that heavy manufacturing would demand a higher rent than the property today, and now you're stating a research and development would as well. Those are two far extremes when it comes to these two types of buildings. Would you just not agree that industrial buildings have a multitude of uses and can demand for them?
Oh, sure, yeah. But again, I think when we take a look at the building, the type of building 1595 Buffalo would align itself more so with a R&D laboratory system, and this type of building that 2475 Day Street would be more along the lines of heavy industrial. We wouldn't necessarily see the same uses being able to be used for the subject property. Be more, given the configuration of the building and the site, it's clearly being used more so for the service garage approach.
Those are all my questions.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson, questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
And Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions, thank you.
I also have no questions. So do you have a wish for a summation on this property, Mr. Van Bergen?
No, I think we've taken a good look at it. I do respectfully request the board to take a look at that rental rate, as well as the capitalization rate, particularly as when we show the properties we're utilizing, and showing the fact that a capitalization rate of 6.25, increasing that capitalization rate to 6.25. Thank you very much.
Mr. Lobenstein, did you have anything further to add?
No summation at this moment, no, at this time.
Thank you. Thank you for your time this morning, Mr. Van Bergen.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Everyone have a lovely day. Thank you for your time, everyone.
Sure.
Thank you.
Take care.
Yes.
Would you like me to do that?
We're just going to take a short break. We're waiting on our next applicant. I would like to call this meeting back to order. We are still on 2529 Inkster Boulevard. Mr. Laudenstein?
I'll quickly review the brief, or go through it. So again, the roll number is 14099963100. The assessed value is $4,724,000. We have an effective year built of 2008, an average wall height of 28 feet. The leased and gross floor area is 29,730 square feet and a land to plan of 4.67. By page 2, we have spoken in length about the contract rent of $15 a square foot. Again, on page 3, this is the location of the property and some overhead views on page 4 and 5. Page 6 is our income workup. We are using a model rent of $9.21 a square foot applied to the leasable area for the potential rent of $273,813. We're applying a model vacancy of 4%. Our expenses is 6%. The $3.85 per square foot for shortfall to get our net operating income of $250,396. Again, we're applying an overall capitalization rate of 5.3% for an estimated value of $4,724,000. On page 7 are the rent comparables. The rent comparables, the lease starts are fairly recent in the market. The lease terms are fairly typical. The leased areas are very similar to the subject property, along with the average wall heights. The effective year built range from 1981 to 2007, and the net rents range from $9.08 up to $11.45 a square foot. Again, these are net rents in the market, and these are what our models are based on. On page 9 is our capitalization rate chart. It ranges the 20th to the 80th percentile range from 5.5 to 7.5, and you can see that the 5.3% falls just outside of the 20th percentile. And that would be mostly due to the fact that this building was built in 2008. It's a fairly new and modern building. And I'll quickly scroll down to the income and expenses. You can see that, as I spoke to before, on page 17 is the net operating income of $431,000.96. And again, on page 18 is the $15 rent that they are achieving in this building. So we feel that the value of $4,724,000 is fair and equitable. Thank you.
I thank you.
Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Rocky Neufeld.
You affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Newcomb, did you have questions for Mr. Laudenstein?
Yes, I do. Page 8, was this valuation done by the model?
Yeah, as I mentioned in my workup, it's all model driven. Yeah.
And rent comparables, page 7, did you select these yourself?
Yeah, these are selected by me, yes.
Okay. And did the rent comparables that you have on page 7, were they used in preparation of the model?
They would have been used in consideration with the model, yes. The model would be using these to help value this building.
The sale on page 2, do you have any knowledge of the conditions of the sale?
I don't have a sale on page 2.
Yes, you do. Don't you?
Do I? Maybe
2008.
Oh, it might be. Give me a second here. Oh, okay. I had 2 different briefs. Sorry. I don't have any knowledge of this sale. No.
And the subject property lease, have you seen the lease?
I have only seen the lease since you have sent it in as rebuttal evidence.
So you inserted this based on your reading of the income and expense form then?
Correct.
Then you have no knowledge of the clauses in the lease then, I take it.
No, we were not given the lease. We only request the income and expense mailer, and that's what was sent to us.
Your capitalization rate at 5.3%, you're saying that's the model. So if I'm looking at your page 9, just tell me what line that would have come out of. Is that A, B? Just roughly?
We don't differentiate between A and B.
Okay.
As you can see.
You have 3 so-called industry experts who their range of cap rates in industrial reported to be between 5.75 and 7.25. Your rate is below that. Why do you put in these industry experts if you do not listen to them?
Well, we review all properties in the city of Winnipeg where, the industry experts, as you put it, only seem to look at certain types of properties.
Well, don't they provide a guideline for what the lowest cap rate might be?
They're showing a guideline in terms of 5.75 as the lowest cap rate for the types of properties they look at.
Yeah, that's an industrial A at 5.75, correct?
That's how they define it, yes.
And did they rate this property as an industrial A to your knowledge?
I would not know. I don't know how they generate their cap rates.
The subject property, do you know its usage?
Its exact usage, no, I don't.
Well, it's being called an industrial warehouse, as I understand, but you notice your picture, page 5, with all the service bays. You're aware that it's truck service?
Yeah, so it is a truck service. Sorry, I'm getting some feedback here. Yeah, it is a truck service, as you mentioned. It's got overhead doors on both sides of the property.
Okay, and your pictures seem to be all zoomed in. I'm just wondering if you're aware of the access changes that have occurred to this property.
All I can say is you can see they have access from Innsbrook in my picture and from Inkster.
Now, the Inkster access, are you aware that it was shut down from eastbound traffic?
From eastbound, so as you're driving east, because all I can see looking at a map is that you can take a left on Inkster into Innsbrook to get in.
Right, but you can't turn in to the subject's own access point anymore.
You would have to be heading westbound on Inkster to be able to turn in.
Are you aware of the Innsbrook median construction issues?
I am not, no.
You're aware that the city of Winnipeg actually wanted to extend the median all the way down Innsbrook past their entry point?
I am not aware, but did they do that, or is there still access to turn left?
Well, you can ask me later. I'm just aware if you're aware of what was happening for the transportation routes in the neighborhood since 2008. The changes. You're not aware. That's fine.
Well, we have our pictures that we're showing on here are from 2021, and it's still showing access to turn left onto Innsbrook.
Well, I think all your pictures were cut off.
Well, sorry, I'm looking at a map on my computer right now.
Okay, all right. In regard to these leases, and I did catch some of this, but I'm just kind of concerned. Don't you have any from the area?
Well, due to the fact that this building was built in 2008, I had to look outside the area.
Well, it's a truck repair facility at the corner of Inkster and Brookside, which is based on transportation. Does that have the same locational qualities as 2475D?
It's probably actually got better location quality.
Well, different. I will argue better later, but it is different, correct? 2475D is way out on the east side, right?
Yeah.
Okay. 130 Lowson, this is the brewery?
Yeah.
Okay. They make beer on site? No. Okay, we'll move on. 300 Salto, I did catch some of that conversation. You know, I represent them. Were you at the assessor at the hearing when we provided the evidence that it's all owner occupied?
Correct, I was. Again, this was put in before then.
Okay.
We still have it as from the mailers are still saying it's a net rent. So
yeah, okay, that's fine. If you put it in before and we saw it later, that's fine. And I don't even know what is 1595 Buffalo. I'm just trying to think what that is.
That's an industrial building on Buffalo. It's Precision ADM Inc. in there.
Okay, I was just wondering if it was that real estate office, that's all.
No, it's not, no.
Okay. And that's in Fort Garry.
Correct.
Okay. And then the last one, 110 Sutherland, downtown location. What possible use could this be?
Well, it's in Point Douglas area.
Right.
Let's see here. It's a Sturgeon Tire distribution.
Okay. All right. You aware that the subject lease was built to suit?
As I said, we didn't get the lease.
Okay. And I'm just going back to, I mean, I've represented this property for several years, and I'm just wondering if you checked through the notes on the background behind the lease, and that it was built to suit and it was part of a national contract. And it's been provided the assessment department by myself probably 5 times. Did you see any of that in the file?
I don't, but what I would like to point out is that we are not using a $15 lease.
Oh, no, that's fair. That's fair. But you've got it there in evidence, right?
You have sent it to me, yes.
No, but you've got it on your page 2 as evidence, so it's fair.
Oh, yeah.
Question.
I'm showing that, yes, in the end, this building is generating a $15 rent.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thanks.
I'm assuming Mr. McIntyre and Ms. Anderson, you have no questions, correct?
Correct.
I also have no questions. Mr. Neufeld, if you would like to present your brief, please.
And again, I don't like being a procedural stickler, but was there anything arising out of the board members' questions that would be pertinent? I was not admitted to the hearing, and I only saw parts of it on YouTube.
I would say that we also asked about a cap rate and some of the comparables.
Okay, thank you.
Nothing the ordinary, Mr. Neufeld.
Okay, good. So the site has been well described. My involvement with the site dates back to 1996. At the time, it was 3 sections of land owned by a plumber named Klaus Rossler, who redeveloped this into the Inksbrook Industrial Park. This parcel was number 2 for development. The first one was 2525 Inkster, which you're going to hear later. The second parcel was at the corner of Inkster and Brookside. This parcel was purchased by Mr. Ed Danilchuk, and he subdivided it into I think 4 parcels, one for his Peterbilt dealership, one subsequently sold to 3M, one sold to the north of this property for bakery, and then the last parcel being vacant and still vacant today. As I said, my first inspection in 96, it was being cultivated. I met the farmer on the field at that time. We were also involved with the negotiation with the city of Winnipeg for extension of services. The initial thought was services could come from Inkster. Those were temporary, and the developer had to bring them in from King Edward at his cost. And the concept of being at the corner of Brookside and Inkster was important for the road transport industry because at the time, this was where the truckers' nucleus, where they would be. Now, since I bring this up because since Centerport came online, that nucleus, that center has moved westward into the arm of Rosser because their routes are better and they're limited access routes, so the trucks can go off on without delays, rather than endure the traffic jams at the corner of Inkster and Brookside. The other problem with Inkster and Brookside is that the east side is owned by the city of Winnipeg. The west side is in the arm of Rosser. So there are ongoing disputes on who's responsible for the roads. How do you define the accesses? And this is hurting the business users and shifting everything into Canada, Centerport land, because Centerport is under a different planning jurisdiction. And so this is losing its appeal in the market. The other issue that's happened is that after 2008, and I believe the date was 2012 or 13, the city began to widen and 4-lane Inkster at this point. All the access was cut off from eastbound lanes except for a light that was put up at Inksbrook. And subsequently, the trailer turning was difficult. And if you'll see our picture on page 1, and I'm sorry it doesn't do justice to the issue, but the left turn in on the eastbound lane is rather limited for trailers. My client on the opposite side of Inksbrook, we were 2525 Inkster, Fort Garry Industries, had to appeal and fight to get more widening. Now, you'll note that in the picture on page 1, the access going east and west off Inksbrook is actually now much wider. So this was something that I was working on with them to get truck turning improved. The truck turning from Inkster was not improved. So now your access points for the trucks will be from Brookside onto Inksbrook. So that's northwest of here, where Inksbrook is a sort of a crescent. It moves from the picture up and to the left or westward to hook up with Brookside, and that's where the trucks are now coming in. It just means more intersections, more lights, more delays. There's no good on-off as it was when it was first built. Planning changes in the city, and there are reasons for it. The point I'm making is that planning was detrimental to the subject use. They are now would be better served to be located westward for their usage. They are power systems, so what they do is they repair hydraulic systems in trucks. As this was being built, I inspected it numerous times on behalf actually of the owner, and then lately I'm now representing the tenant on this matter. And this was planned to be a good truck service area with power hydraulic systems here, wheels and chassis work at Fort Garry Industries, and motor work at Peterbilt. It's been declining with the locational deficiencies. There are better sites. And you'll see an erosion of rents as a result of this. The lease, which has been discussed, has been provided to you as rebuttal. The point I wanted to show you in the lease was that this was a build-to-suit lease, 15-year term. Right in the lease, it says construction costs at 8% will be our lease. That's as clear as you can possibly get to a build-to-suit. It was also done at the same time that 3M and Watrous did deals across Canada, in Vancouver, Toronto, Edmonton, Calgary. They were building a system across the country, and all the rents were the same in every city in the country. They were all paying the same rate. So this was just a national deal. And the assessor's correct. Over the years I've represented it, nobody's ever put reliance on the lease because of those issues. However, it was entered as evidence, so I find that that's prejudicial, and we should explain that this was a business deal. The one must look at the market rather than anything in contract here, because it is different. What we were looking at on the rents, we do have, I believe, the most perfect rent for this, and I'm just trying to find it on my sheet here. It's 2535 Inkster, which is in the Armor Rosser, but truckers don't care what RM you're in. And you know what? It never made this list. At least I can't find it. I didn't rehearse myself. 2535 Inkster, which was a truck service garage located right across the street from the subject property. No, I don't see it. That was entered. And other than that, I would be looking at rates in the Inkster area or St. James at the very least. And on our page 3, we have many of these. And if you're looking in the area, you can see that we have Dublin, Paramount, St. James, Sargent, and incidentally, I'm not sure I heard 1695 Sargent being discussed before. Yes, I did. Oh no, it was King Edward or Sargent. Okay, that's a Home Depot Jobbers warehouse. Church Avenue, Paramount, 1740 Inkster, all in and around the same area. 1450 Mountain, which was a redevelopment play, which I guess we're going to hear later. 1435 St. James, which is agricultural parts, and there is great support for industrial rents in the neighborhood. The highest one we had is 695, and these weren't rates that we selected to be favorable. These are rates that we knew were clean leases. Unlike the subject, there are a lot of TIs and non-arm's length issues with leases. We've heard them with the assessor's use of 300 Salto, which is an owner's internal lease. We strive to get leases that are clean. Most all of these, you'll note, were done by Colliers, so we have the entire internal file as to what the actual rents were that were agreed at a clean rate. As a result, we're thinking that the declining nature, or not declining nature, the more preferential location in Centerport has weakened this particular location, and we think that on a replacement basis, we're probably looking at $7 a foot. As to what's in the building, there's really not much in terms of usage. Like, there's no massive craneways or infrastructure. It's power systems. If you know what those are, it's the hydraulics. So anything hydraulic on a truck, to the pistons that lift up the bed, to the systems in the brakes and the motor, fluid power. That's what's being done here. So it's not a major overhaul. It's generally replacing a seal, a pump, or refilling the fluid, which is done here. Vacancy we calculated on a mean of the city industrial and the Inkster industrial, just blended that rate at 5.2%. Those came from the Johnson report. Again, that's a source that's clean, in that we get actual numbers from actual deals and actual vacancies. Non-recoverables, I believe that the statement you have would indicate that there are non-recoverables in the site. I'm just looking at what was provided in the assessor's page 15, and you'll note that that there is no recovery for insurance and property management. So that's $18,000, which would be somewhere around 4.5%. So in and by itself, that's good evidence that they exist, as well as our table on pages 30 3 and 34, which is our Colliers managed properties, which show a mean of 9.81% on our managed properties. These are a mix of industrial, office, and retail. All properties have non-recoverable costs, and the industry standard is to apply them, not the assessor's model. Shortfall calculation, we differ from the city because shortfall is comprised of the cost to occupy or the cost to maintain the site when it's not generating rent. And these are fixed costs. And we're repeating myself again and again. You don't have to hear the next couple. They include the taxes, utilities, maintenance as vacant. The taxes alone are $3.81 a square foot. So a $3.85 rate by the assessor is not reasonable. These shortfall costs should be linked to the income because taxes are the primary cost in the ingredients. As well, if you have a premium property, it'll cost more to maintain while it's empty because you need to keep it in good shape to rent it to the next person. Ultimately, then the capitalization rate. I did catch some of the previous discussion, and I found it very well. I find that no one has any cap rates because really there weren't any investment sales from 2018 onwards that have hit anyone's books. Most of the deals we've done at Colliers have been on owner-occupied spaces. There have been a number of cap rate deals in the arm of Rosser for distribution warehouses that I became aware of. They tended to be post-reference, and that's a different animal. Our page 24 is the industrial, and you'll note that we have a range of 6 to 6.75. This would be classified as a Class B, and our rating system is on the next page, page 25, is not an A because an A is larger. It'll have bays, 3,000 by 30 by 100 foot bays that are demisable, movable, and flexible. This isn't flex warehouse. This is a garage, but it would still probably be considered a B because of the way it was built. And in that respect, we're looking at that would lead us to in that range of 6 to 6.75. Our concerns with this particular site on page 2, we look at a base rate and we subtract the variances. And now the first one being the closing costs. The Colliers cap rate is a cap rate for the purchaser, not the vendor. So as a result, the cap rates would be higher. And very interesting point, as of last Thursday, it now appears that I will be writing the Colliers cap rate report, and I'm going to put that all in the report so I don't have to keep going through this at the board when the city chooses to rely on it. Well, our caps are calculated differently, and so a 6 becomes a 6.15 as the base. Other than that, there are some issues relating to the quality and condition in that it was built for truck service. So the alternate use may or may not be truck service, and it's unlikely you're going to find a perfect alternative use for it. So on the market, that would be the requirement for some capital costs for conversion, which is why we came out to a number of 6.75%, and our value at $2,560,000. And that's my presentation, and I do have a very brief summation.
Thank you, Mr. Lobenstein. Questions?
I guess my only question is that the $15 that is a net rent.
No, it's a payment. We would classify it as recovery.
Okay, so
cost recovery.
But the NOI that they have on the income expense mailer is $431,096.
Well, the mailer, which incidentally I have never seen, is required by legislation to fill out. This isn't something that's binding them to meet standards of valuation. This is a requirement to report. This is not purporting to be an opinion of value. This is a statement of facts. We're recovering our initial costs to build at over a 15-year amortization period. It's a loan repayment.
Okay, those are all my questions.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson, questions?
Just in regards to the cap rate that you request, Rocky, of 6.75%. So you indicate that's the high end of your industrial class because it's a Class B building, despite the age being a newer building.
Yeah, and I think I told you yesterday, I don't prepare these reports. I get them from people who prepare them. I disagree with points here. I would be of the opinion that I wouldn't be as hard on quality and condition. My issue with this is location and access. And in the long run, that's going to work out to roughly the same number.
Okay.
The quality of a building means nothing if you can't sell it to somebody who has a use for it. We see most of all the deals going west to Centerport. You don't have to deal with the city of Winnipeg anymore. And that's an awful thing to say, but it is the truth. Nobody wants to deal with the city of Winnipeg on their planning. The fights we've had for this site with the road access, the city determines the road access must be this way, and they turn a blind eye to the users, like they're supposed to adapt. And you had a 53-foot trailer and a tractor trying to turn into a site, and you have property and planning saying, no, you can't do it that way. So that's the real issue here.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for your presentation. Those are all my questions.
Thank you. Mr. McIntyre, questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
And my question was asked and answered. And Mr. Neufeld and Mr. Lovenstein, do you have a wish for summation on this property?
I don't have summation, no.
And what I was wanting to say is that I know we had multiple appellants. I did listen to what the other side eventually said for value. I just want to point out that I'm working for the people who are actually going to pay the taxes. And I've been involved with the site since 1996, and I've been to the site. This isn't an office work. This is a job I don't just do tax work. I do all sorts of work for properties, and it's based on a working knowledge, not a hypothetical desktop calculation. Thank you.
I thank you. Thank you both for your presentations. We'll move on to 525 Inkster Boulevard.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Lovenstein.
Sure. The roll number is 141000481002525 Inkster Boulevard. The assessed value is $7,738,000. We have a actual year and effective year built ranging between 1999 and 2008, but we are using 1999 as the overall year built. Wall heights range from 19 feet to 28 feet. We have M2 zoning, and the land area is 746,598 square feet. The gross floor and leasable area are both 96,028 square feet for a land to plan of 8.71. We'll move down to my page 3 to get a look at where it's located. We're obviously very familiar with this area of the city now. This is right across the street from the property that we just did. So on the bottom page 3, you can see the overhead view of the property. It obviously has a high land to building ratio to allow for the trucks to move in and out and to store materials. And on page 3 and on page 4, you can get some different views of the property. You can see some of the overhead doors. And also on page 5, there's some more pictures, and you can see the access points to Inkster and Innsbruck. On my page 6, we have a leasable area of 96,028 square feet. We're using a model rent of $5.66 a square foot. We're then applying a 4% vacancy, 3% expenses, and our shortfall of $3.85 a square foot to get our net operating income of $491,336. We have a capitalization rate of 6.35% that we applied to our net operating income to get our estimated value of $7,738,000. On page 7, you can see our rent comparables. These are actual net rents in the market. For this type of property, we're looking for similar leasable areas. So we have a range of 77,000 square feet all the way up to 136,000 square feet. The wall heights are similar to the property in that they range from 22 feet all the way up to 31 feet. And the effective years built range from 1975 up to 2001. And then we have the net rents ranging from $5.07 a square foot all the way up to $9. So moving to my page 9, again, here's the 20th to the 80th percentile for our capitalization rates at 6.35. This falls, this model capitalization rate falls between that percentile. On page 11 is a mailer. This is an owner-occupied building, so there is no lease in place. So we feel a value of $7,738,000 is fair and equitable and should be confirmed. Thank you.
And thank you. Christina, questions?
Page 6, the valuation was done by the model. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you've used one rate for all sections?
We have, yes.
Why would that be?
Well, we have, it's all used by, I guess, one tenant. And yeah, I guess there are two different, there are two different parts of this building, it looks like, with different wall heights, but we're still using just one leasable area.
Well, I'm just wondering if you're aware that it was built and designed with 5 distinctive separate uses.
I'm not aware that it was built and designed with 5 distinctive separate uses.
Now, I jumped the gun here. I noticed that there's no additional land value this year. When was this corrected?
I believe that was corrected recently when we were reviewing properties.
Okay, so my 25 years of harping finally paid off?
I can't say that was referenced to you, no.
Okay. As the cap here, sorry, you've got this calling it a storage warehouse. Is that actually the actual use?
Those are like internal codes that we use. So yeah, we are considering this a storage warehouse. This is not what it's being used for. I believe that they construct or partially construct fire engines here. So
in regards to your cap rate table, it's still you have just one set of cap rates, correct? Regardless of the usage. You
correct.
Class it as a storage warehouse. You put in the square footage, the location, and that's the number that pops out. I mean, I'm simplifying it, obviously, but in a nutshell, it's kind of the way it works.
Sure, yeah. We look at certain attributes of a building, and that will determine the cap rate.
Okay. Are there difficulties with this model when you have a more unique usage?
I wouldn't say unique usage per se, but sometimes the model's not going to pick up certain issues with a property.
Okay. The comparables you have, page 7, was number 1, is that a sublet or is that a new lease? That's Conan Nagel, correct?
The Fife one, that would be that's a net lease. I don't believe that's a sublease.
Okay, this is a distribution center for, containers, correct?
It is, yeah, it would be a distribution center if it looks like that. Yeah.
230 Panet Road, this is the warehouse for, Ashley Furniture, correct?
Give me a moment here. We have DFA operations in there. I'm not too sure who they are.
Okay. And who's 1755 Dugald?
Give me a moment here. This would be easier to do it this way. All fab.
Okay.
Building components.
200 Bagan is rather old. Is this still valid?
We have it as an 18-year lease. So it was definitely signed, yeah, in 2005.
Okay. All right. What was it researched at all to determine if this was any sort of a cost recovery lease?
No, like I said, we don't always get the leases. Sometimes they send them in with the income and expense mailers, but in this case, they didn't.
1777 Ellis, if I'm correct, is a retail parts distribution store.
Yeah, it's a United Auto Parts.
So open to the public, they walk in and buy their parts. And
I mean, I'm sure there's a portion of the building that's like that, yes, but the most of it would be warehouse.
It's Ellis near King Edward, correct?
It's on Ellis, yeah, near King Edward.
And 1345 Redwood being the old is this the old Boeing lease?
Yes, that's correct.
Did you have an opportunity to read the lease about the $2 million in tenant improvements that the landlord was required to put in to get this lease?
I am aware of that this has been some discussion and some debate in the past. I believe that we're at the municipal board for something like this. So, I mean, we feel that this is a good net lease.
Okay. And I'm sorry, because I thought that when I've been working on this and dealing with assessors on it, they always come to the conclusion that they don't plan on relying on it for the assessment because of the nature of the tenant contribution to the tenant's business.
Give me a moment here. I believe it's still pending at the municipal board, so I don't know if that's a decision that's been made or not.
Okay. If you can't talk about it, that's fine. But I have been working on it. I know that your colleagues have stated to us that they don't intend on relying on that rent.
I can't agree to that for the simple fact that it is at the municipal board right now. So
okay, that's fair. Now, with the exception of 1155, all of these are located in much different parts of the town, are they not?
They're all over they're all over the city. I would agree with that. And when you're looking at such large square footage as the subject property, you do have to do that at times.
But if you have a property that's in a retail area that's got good conversion ability, wouldn't that be different than the subject, which has no alternate use?
Well, I mean, not all these are in retail areas. Some of them are. I mean, Fife's at the Inkster Industrial Park, and same with 1345 Redwood. So,
I guess I was speaking of Ellis and Gamble as examples of being in areas. Ellis being part of the St. James retail area, and Gamble being in Fort Garry, which is being gentrified. Like Gamble's next to Rapid Transit 2 line, correct?
Yeah, but in all fairness for Ellis, St. James has the most industrial properties out of anywhere in the city. So, I mean, yes, there is retail in that area as well, but there was a lot of industrial.
And your comp is retail, correct?
A portion of it is, yes.
Oh no, I've been in it. It looks all of it to me. Okay, I'm just trying to think. Yeah, no, those are my questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson, questions?
My questions have been asked and answered. Thank you.
Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions, thank you.
I also have no questions. Mr. Neufeld, if you'd like to proceed.
Thanks. And I guess accuse me of not reading ahead. I've been accustomed. This is my first client ever, dating back to 1995 when they were on McPhillips and were relocated by Liquor and Lotteries, and they had to look for a new site. They got this one, and I was working on it for that time period, and all the times we've dealt with it, and more than just tax appeal, I've dealt with the lane issues. The original purchase, the extension of services here, the agreement with Liquor and Lotteries to leave their old site, and a number of other issues. For example, on their on my page 1. And I'm telling you this relation just so you understand that I'm not a tax agent here. On page 1, the subject property is outlined in blue. Now there's a lot on the east side. It's a narrow, deep lot. It's 53,000 square feet. I bought this in my own name for my client, and they subsequently repurchased it from me. This is the nature of our relationship. This is the work I do for them. And we then tried to amalgamate it and replot the site, but ran into problems. When in, I believe it was 2012-13, the original, sorry, I backed this up here. The original usage of the site was multiple usages. Looking at the picture where the red dot is, these are the service bays where they bring in trucks. They do chassis, wheel repair, brake repair. That's their specialty, and some accessory parts. To the east of that is their warehouse for these parts. The second level is their national office. So they have locations stretching from Surrey to I just want to say the Guelph. They have about 17 locations across the country. They are headquartered in Winnipeg. They're called Fort Garry Industries because they used to be located in the back lane between Fort and Garry, and moved and grew. Moving along eastward, it was the old fire truck assembly place. They moved. This is a family operation, and they severed portions of it. So fire trucks moved on. Their initial purchase was the land immediately north of it. The irregular shaped lot on my page 1 where you see trailers parked. They had planned on putting the fire truck building in here, but found out later that with the setback from the pond, they lacked the land. They subsequently moved to 53 Bergen Cutoff in Rosser, and they now have a 53,000 square foot plant there for making fire trucks. So the fire trucks are gone. Then the last section of this is north of that fire truck plant, where it was a rubber relining facility. So anytime you see a rubber roller on a conveyor belt of some sorts and wonder how do they put the rubber on it, they do it here. And those were their main lines of business. They also have off-site brake relining facility, asbestos brake facility. Could not get approval to have it in the city limits, so that's located in Oak Bluff. And so it's all-encompassing truck repair plus the 2 sidelines of rubber re-rolling, and the fire truck's now gone. And my work on all of this, for example, when fire trucks moved, was to deal with the dedication costs on the land they bought, and be involved with the purchase. So I've always been more of an in-house counsel for them rather than an outside agent. When fire trucks moved, and that was in the rebuttal information, and I don't think much. Well, the issue was, if you look at my page 2, the bottom of page 2, was originally all truck bay doors. This is where fire trucks came in and out, and there was a downdraft paint booth, and you can still see the outline of the equipment on the top, right above the sign that says Fort Garry Industries on the wall. That's all been removed, and they took the doors and they closed the wall sections at this point and expanded their warehouse facility on site. However, it's still underutilized because they have all the land in the world, all the space in the world, but no use for it. So on page 5, this is the vacant second floor office occupied by fire trucks. No use for it because it was part of that operation. Top of page 6 and bottom of page 6, this is the old fire trucks workspace, and you can see where the bay doors were on the right side in the top picture. This was where the scissor jacks are located in the back. That's where the downdraft paint booth was for painting fire engine red everywhere. They did aluminum welding on site because most of the work is aluminum. That's all gone. So this space was subsequent to this was partially occupied by the parts. The bottom page 7 is the rear space where the rubber relining is in, and these are just the bays where the product is bought in, and there's autoclave units, and they do the work in the back. So this is not a nice. This is a working space, and so subsequent to that, we looked at the plan area and the mezzanine, and we put a rent of $416 on the main floor and a lower rent on the mezzanine because it lacked utility. It's great to have mezzanine there for their use, but that use disappeared when Fort Garry fire trucks moved on, and it's empty. So what do you do with an industrial building in the northwest quadrant of Winnipeg with excess office space? That shows you the difference, the gap between the market and a mass appraisal modeling system. There's no demand for it. There's no private entrance for it. It's not marketable, so it's just going to sit empty. So rather than, I mean, our concept here was, do we apply like a storage rent on it, which is $350, or do we look for a higher vacancy? And it is still all owner controlled. So, you know, we could put a higher rent there, but then we'd want a 15% vacancy. And I think in the long run, we picked the method that we think best replicates the market. Treat it as storage space, not finished office. You see from the pictures, it's not finished office. The rents were determined by looking at our page 3, and this is the printout from our concept of trying to figure out a rate. Large buildings, if someone comes along and has large building rents and wants to provide an analysis, it tends to be extremely subjective. And you'll note, and I'm not being critical of the assessor personally, but when you go so far afield as to look at rents that occur in Fort Garry or rents for retail operations, you're missing the picture. The rents must be from similar usages. So this is just a mathematical calculation. There's a formula. Plug in 85,760 square feet, and Excel works that on our trend line. It intersects at $416 a square foot. I can't say that's perfect, but that is I think as close as we can reasonably get. And if you look at some of our larger rents, I think the Pandora rent, 770 Pandora, this was a larger building with a high ceiling, a manufacturing facility in Transcona, and it was subdivided into pieces without capital, by the way. It was just subdivided, and it's got 2 spots in it. One's at 373, one's at 350, one's at 375, and one's at $3. They're segregated by their unit size. 630 Kernahan, again, another furniture warehouse. And it was subdivided without capital, which means they just put up the demising wall. They didn't do any improvements. Rents in that range from $286 to $355. Colliers represents those sites, so the information is quite accurate. Another one of note is 1855 Sargent, and this is leased by it's the company Standard Aero, and it's across the street from their main outfit. It's at $330 a square foot, and incidentally, this was renewed in October of 19 at the same rate, $330 a foot. It is lower ceilinged, so it is compared to the subject. It's inferior in ceiling, but it is superior in location, being near the airport. And this is the nature of what we were looking at to try to find deals. Now, 1450 Mountain, which you'll hear later today, we have two rents, one at $5 and one at $5.25. All of this space was improved with several $1 million worth of capital improvements. And it's one is I believe it's the City of Winnipeg storage space, and the other is Canada Goose. I'll correct myself later. And another rent of note is 1821 Wellington at $2. That's the old Eaton's warehouse. This is now in use for park and ride. Nothing wrong with the space. It's high ceilinged. It's just, what do you do with 146,000 square feet? The last one, which is one of the better ones for comparability, although it's larger, one was 1093 Sherwin. This is Reliance Plastics at $295 a square foot. Now, Reliance takes 2-year terms. I know that this rent is no longer at $295. I believe it's crept up to either $320 or $350. I don't recall. But that is a very, very good comp for a building this size. That's, I think they're very, very supportive of the numbers we pick. This is not grade A warehouse or flex space. This was designed to accommodate 5 uses in 5 sections, and adapted as you went along for a local user. This isn't an international company or a REIT coming to Winnipeg and building a flex warehouse and getting people to occupy. This was made for them. And I was there at the ground floor. Now, as to cap rates, this would not go into the Colliers cap rate study because of the nature of the building, because of its more unique nature. And so it would be outside of our cap rate, and our cap rate, as we've referenced, was between 6 and 6.75. I think the 7 is a pretty fair estimate. In the deficiencies, as noted, I did not do this, but I would put obviously access as one of the issues, and design and layout, which has been picked up on by the person who did this. Quality and condition. This is a metal pre-engineered building. This isn't a tilt-up concrete, so it's got a life to it. I think the number we've presented is probably a pretty fair indication of how a purpose-built building would be on the market, and that's my presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Lodenstein, questions?
Just looking at your rent comparables that you talked about, I'm just going to comment on the date they were signed. Some of them are quite old now, and you commented that some of them are probably increased. Would you agree that most of these have probably increased in rent?
No, the Pandora and Kernahans haven't. I personally have reviewed the new data on those sites, and the person who made this had not updated it, so they're still where they were at when they were set. 680 Mission I never brought up. I believe that was renewed at $4 in that neighborhood in 2020. I mentioned Sherwin, I believe, was renewed at $325 in 18 and $345 in 2020. I'm going from memory. I think they're still pretty much supporting our $4.16 because they're still all below that.
And just, yeah, you commented on Kernahan and Pandora. It's my understanding that they're mostly gross leases. So did you net those out?
Yeah, correct. The leases are written at around. They have two sets of spaces. They have office and industrial. The industrials are written around $575. They don't have the ability to split their heating costs. So our calculation was these were the nets were calculated by ourselves, and also with Jim Kulik in my office here, who does all their leasing. We don't do this stuff all independently, and Jim's been their leasing agent for 30 years.
Okay, those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson, questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
Mr. McIntyre?
And I have no questions, thank you.
I just have one quick question, Mr. Neufeld, for clarification. On your first page, under the mezzanine of square footage of 10,268 at a $350 rent, is that the area that is vacant?
No. The vacant space is. I do have it written down somewhere. It would be in the neighborhood of 4,500 square feet, and the rest of the space is used by Fort Garry Industries. So they do use the space. It's very, very basic finish. It's quite heartening to walk into the president's office and see exposed steel and about the lowest quality accommodations. They are very down to earth people. But yes, about 45% empty.
Percent?
Yeah, I said 4,500 feet on 10,000 feet. I think that's about 45% vacant.
All right, thank you. That's all my questions. And did you have rebuttal?
I rather erred in that respect. I was anticipating having to argue land area, and the rebuttal was just printed back up to my comments about access and the conversion, the pictures of the conversion when they went from fire trucks to fire after fire trucks left, and I don't think that there's any need to go through it.
All right, and thank you for that. Do either of you have any estimation on the property?
I don't know.
And Mr. Neufeld?
I just to reiterate that this is a company that was founded in Winnipeg, grew in Winnipeg, and headquartered in Winnipeg, and this is not industrial. This isn't REIT. This isn't an investment. This is working space. Thank you.
I thank you. Is everyone okay to proceed to the next property? Does anybody require a 5-minute break?
I would like 5.
Sure, that's fine.
We'll just take a quick break. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to call this hearing back to order, and we are going to move on to our next item, which is 1429 Mountain Avenue. And Mr. Lobenstein, whenever you'd like to proceed.
Sure. The roll number is 140416261000, 1429 Mountain Avenue. The assessed value is $3 million.
The file number.
Oh, the file number is 222348. Yeah. The assessed value is $3,702,000. The actual year and effective age year built are 1977. We have a wall height of 26 feet, zoning of M2. We have a land area of 99,135 square feet. Gross floor area of 39,870 square feet and a leasable area of 40,432 square feet. There is a mezzanine in this property, which is the differences between the leasable and gross floor area. Moving down to my page 2, they are compliant. There is some sales history of this property. It's quite dated, a 2014 being the most recent sale. There's also a 2010 sale and a 2002 sale. There are leases in place in this property. It's for one company leasing the whole building. The reason the leased areas look like that is because the building is broken up into these sections. This is how it was constructed. Moving forward on my page 3, you can see that this is in the Inkster Industrial Park between, I guess that's Church and Mountain, or it's on Mountain. Down to my page 4, you can see an overhead view. So this property is a little different in the sense of it backs right up against a rail track. The rail line that runs through the industrial park, there is a spur line that can feed the property. You can see that, the spur line that breaks away. This property only has front loading due to the fact that it butts right to the rail track. You can see that on my page 5. You can see the overhead doors. They all look to be above grade, from what I can tell. They only have access off Mountain Avenue. And you can see that on page 5 as well. So for our income workup on page 6, we have broken up our premises to how this building was constructed. So we have 3 different premises. They range from $6.53 up to $6.78. The blended rate is $6.65 per square foot to get our potential rent of $269,061. For this area, we're applying a 4% vacancy. We're again applying our 3% expenses and the shortfall of $3.85 a square foot, and a capitalization rate of 6.6% to get our capitalized value or our estimated market value of $3,702,000. So again, we look to the market to build our model. We're looking at net rents in the market. For this type of property, location would be important. There's quite a few rents in the Inkster industrial area around this size. So we have comparables in Inkster, Keewatin, Fife, Mountain, and Burroughs. So I have 2 leases here that are about the exact same size as the property at $46,000 and $47,000. And they range, and they have a $6.95 and $6.50. Again, similar to the premises, I have a 20,000 and 8,000, another 20,000 square foot, and they range between $6.25 and $7. So they're quite similar to our model rents. Moving forward, again, going over the capitalization rate chart, the cap rate of 6.6 does fall between the 20th and the 80th percentile, and is similarly falls within the outside sources you can see on the right hand side. Moving forward, on my page 13, you can see the income expense mailer that they have sent us. And you can see they have a net income of $230,752. And then also on page 14, you can see that the rent is $7. The base rent is $7.25 a square foot. So taking all this into consideration, we feel the value of $3,702,000 is fair and equitable. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld, questions?
Yes, thank you. The workup page 6 was done by the model, correct? Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
You have 40,432 square feet. The owner claims to be 39,956.
Yep.
You know why there's a difference?
Well, we're going by the permits. Maybe they're not including mezzanine space. I'm not too sure, but this is the This is what we would have got from the permits.
Permits, what permit are you speaking of?
Probably when it was first constructed.
Okay. So you understand that there's a difference between leasable area and physical area, correct?
There can be, yes.
Okay. And they have had an agent come in and said it's 39,656. So wouldn't you think that that was something you should be relying on when you're comparing it to the market?
I'm not going to debate that. If that's the leasable area, if it is 39,000, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Do you know anything about the circumstances of the sale?
No, I do not.
And was the tenant on listed on page 2, to your knowledge, was that a new lease or was that a renewal?
Just give me a moment here. I believe it's a renewal. Yeah, it's if you go to my page 14, it looks like it's a renewal, February 1st, 2020.
I'm reading that. I have move-in date February 1st, 2020. Where do you see renewal?
I'm saying it's a renewal because of the recent how recent it is at February 20. I do believe that they were in there before.
Okay, and do you have that rate?
I don't know.
Okay, and were there any permits taken out to that effect? They spend any money after they purchased it?
There's some money put into the building in 2015. It looks like about $60,000.
Okay.
Oh, and then another one for 80,000.
Okay, I'm looking at them too. They all seem to be relatively small items from what I see.
Yeah.
Okay. And any chance you tried to determine a cap rate based on that?
No, we rely on our model cap rates.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just slowed down. I'm lost sometimes. And so this 6.6 is all model, and this is for 1977 construction, 26-foot ceiling, right?
Yeah, for the size of the building, the location, the age of the building, or the main drivers for the model.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson, did you have questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
And Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions, thank you.
I also have no questions. If you would like to present your brief, Mr. Neufeld?
Yes, thank you. We had looked at a couple different sources. I mean, we have a minor difference here in potential rent, relatively minor. We were using, again, a mathematical calculation, but also looking at the actuals and reading. There are some higher degree of non-recoverables in the statements, and so we came up with $259,000 as potential income. Our vacancy differs from the assessor in that we relied on a proven market model, which is, again, I have it here, is the Johnson report, and looking at a blended rate of the Inkster and the Winnipeg-wide industrial investment vacancy rate, and a bit higher than what the assessor has. Application of non-recoverables, which is a consistent valuation methodology, and again, it's a shortfall issue, and you'll know that when we present our feelings on the shortfall, when we have a building that's inferior, we don't default to the city 385 because it's better for us. We go to the actuals because this is the market. The market says If you got high cost to maintain a building, that's what you should be using. You're misleading if you present something differently. And in our profession, we're governed by standards. We can't be misleading. And there's no such thing as one non-recoverable fits all. You have to deal with the actuals. So our NOI, as a result, then differs far more than the assessors based on these smaller calculations. And it's just a series of issues. If you're moving to market, you stay in market. If you want to hide behind a model, you hide behind the model. I apologize for the words. I'm being dramatic. In terms of capitalization, it's not a great building. I think the assessor pointed it out about a pretty poor land building ratio and a lack of interest on that respect. We looked at our Collier's model, and it's going to be at the upper end of our range. You would likely fit in that 6 to 6.75 range, but again, we do calculate those for purchasers, not for vendors, and not for appraisal. So we came up with, you can see our workout at 6.9 rounded to 7. The rounding is because no one can say with any certainty that a 0.1% is something that you can present to as an opinion of value. We do have to round. And in this case, rounding up was the way to go, just looking at the building. The probably, I'm guessing this wasn't an accident, that the final value came very close to the purchase price in 2014. And seriously, nothing's changed since then. The market has not improved for buildings like this. Any sort of discussion about compression of cap rates or lowering of cap rates is based on new product, new 30-foot distribution warehouses that are in demand, not old buildings in Inkster Industrial. That's the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lobenstein, questions?
Just referring to the rent at $7.25 a square foot. If that's what the building's achieving, I guess my question is, why would you not be using that as your net rent?
And this is just my answer. I was just reading through the statements, and I noted that the number isn't completely a non-recoverable number, and there's also interest income that's included in the statement. So the person who did it worked through these numbers and came up with the 259. When I read it, that's pretty close to what the statements would indicate. The best answer I got.
Okay, those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
I have no questions, thank you.
Mr. McIntyre?
And I have no questions. Thank you.
I also have no questions. Do either of you have a wish for a summation on this property?
I don't know.
Just yes. I mean, there's an obvious error in the rent pool, and there is a sale, and this particular market has shown very little change in the intervening years. Thank you.
We'll move on to 1550 Mountain Avenue.
The roll number is 14041615000 1450 Mountain Avenue. So this is we have a split income stream on this property. There's an exempt portion and a taxable portion. The exempt portion is for the city of Winnipeg's occupying space in this property. So the exempt portion is $2,569,000 for assessed value, and then the taxable portion is $16,649,000 for an assessed value of $19,218,000. You can see we have 7 different premises in this building. We have an actual age of 1977 and an effective age of 1985. The wall heights range from 10 to 29 feet. So 10 would be for the office portion, 29 would be for the industrial portion. The zoning is M2, and the land area is 403,849 square feet. We have a gross floor area of 265,872 square feet and leasable area of 263,399 square feet for a land to plan of 1.6. We'll move to my page 3. So this is located at 1450 Mountain Avenue. It's I believe it's right beside the property or right across the street from the property we just looked at. So you're familiar with the area in the Inkster Industrial Park. So here's an overhead view of the property. As you can see, it's quite the expansive property, taking up most of the space on the site. On the front part, you can see that there is office space. So on my page 5, there is office space at the front, with which it looks like one overhead door or a couple overhead doors for street loading. You can see there are overhead doors on page 5 along the side of the building as well. So the building is broken up into multiple premises, as I spoke about. You can see they range from as small as 6,400 square feet all the way up to 128,000 square feet. You can see the rental ranges. Just give me a second and I'll give you the blended rate. We have a blended rate of $5.64 a square foot. We are applying 4% vacancy for this area, 3% expenses, and $3.85 for shortfall. And so we get net operating income of $1,173,730. We have a capitalization rate of 7.05% to get our estimated value of $16,649,000 for the taxable portion. Moving down, this is now the second income stream. This is for the exempt portion. It's for 33,282 square feet. It's for a $6.01 rent. Again, we're applying 4% vacancy for this area, same expenses and shortfall, and the same cap rate to get $2,569,000. I'll just quickly take you to my page 9. So this is the income value summary. You can see the blended summary on the left-hand column with the two income streams combined together. Page 8 is my rent comparables. These are net rents in the market the model is based off of. So the majority of the rent comparables are in the Inkster area or the Inkster Industrial Park area. For some of the larger properties, we had to branch out to King Edwards and Hutchings and out to Sony to show you some of the rents that the model would be using to predict the value. In terms of effective year built, they're very similar to the subject property. The wall heights are quite similar as well. And the leased areas, for the leased areas, we're looking at what they're actually, what the premises, how we've broken up the premises. And you can see the net rents are ranging from as high as $7.50 to as low as $5.07 a square foot. Again, you can see on page 10 that the 7% capitalization rate falls between the 20th and the 80th percentile, and similarly falls. Some of the outside sources range up to 7.25 as well. So on page 12, there is an income statement that was supplied by the owners of the property. On page 14, you can see they have a net property on line 6950, a net property operating income before interest for $1,491,000, I believe. Yeah. And then you can see their rent roll. Sorry, you might have to zoom in a little bit but you can see some of their rents at $5.70 for Canada Goose, $6.25 for Prolitech, and the Johnson Group's at $7.75 for a looks like a base rent as well. So taking all this into consideration, we feel the value of $19,218 is fair and equitable and should be confirmed. Thank you.
I thank you.
Mr. Neufeld, questions?
Yes. This first page 6, 7. These were all done by the model.
That's correct. Yes.
And when you take these premise IDs, when you put them in the model, I take it generates an independent number for each of the spaces. For example, 128,000 square feet is 534 and 15,000 is 692. If you were to change your model to put just the entire gross area, would you have a different number?
Absolutely.
And wasn't that the way this building was built?
Maybe at one time it was built this way, but as you can see with the rent roll, it's now broken up differently.
Okay, but if you're taking this building to market, are you going to be able to achieve these rents based on picking apart the units?
Possible. I mean, that's how the building is right now. It could be sold that way with tenants in it.
I'm looking and I'm trying to figure this out. So you have looks like 263,000 leasable. Your rent roll on page 15 is nowhere near that number. I'm just wondering if you had tried to reconcile at any point.
Give me a second here. Oh. Yeah, I mean, they seem to be missing some of the rents.
So yeah, they're showing.
Like I'm not seeing the city of Winnipeg in there.
Right, they're showing 3 units, a total of 163,000. But how big is that city of Winnipeg space?
We have it at over 33,000.
Right, so 33,000. You add those up at 196,000. Is there another space that's missing?
There must be, yes.
Okay. And the tenants, you've got them listed on page 15. The non-city tenants being Johnston Group, Protelic, and Canada Goose. And then the city has another 33,000. I'm just wondering about the 5th unit. What is that? Oh, 6th unit.
Just give me a moment here. So it seems we have a vacant unit of 59,742 square feet. That's from the 2019 mailer. Let's see if it's in the 2020. Yeah, so we have a vacant unit for 59,742 square feet.
Okay. Now, on just going back to your page, I guess 6 again, or 6, yeah, 6, and your premise IDs. So Canada Goose in the rent roll is 141,178, which on your, I'm going to suggest to you that it's likely that the 3 of these premise IDs together equal the Canada Goose space.
So what I'm going to say to this is that this building has gone through
Right.
some pretty large renovations in the last little while, so I'm sure walls have been moved and taken out and changed, and we probably have to update our premises to reflect that.
Right, and that's fair, but what my question would be, yes, it works so perfectly that your 128,000 premise leasable area with the 12,536 equal the Canada Goose space. So my question would be, if you're valuing by the model, wouldn't you put those together and it would
Yep.
generate a different rate, right?
Yeah, it'll generate a slightly different rate for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And we're not in disagreement. The 15,898 is listed and the 6,899, but then there's 6,400 feet and 59,000 square feet for a total of about 65,100, 66,100 feet. 33 is occupied by the city. So perhaps the vacancy might be 28,000 feet.
It's possible, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. And again, it's the same question again. Had these numbers been put in more accurately, then the model may have generated a different value.
Yeah, it would generate a different value slightly, though. I don't think it would make a huge difference.
Oh, when the model does the capitalization rate, does it take into account the origin of the building being a single tenanted building that's then been demised? Any
No.
issue there? Okay.
No, not the origin of the building. No.
Okay.
How it's presently being used.
Oh, it's presently being used, but not how it was built.
I mean, in terms of we'll take into account the year built, but not how it was built. No.
Okay. All right. Have you been in the building?
I have, but it's been a very long time, and I definitely did not get a tour of the whole building.
Okay. Do you know how long the city's lease is?
I do not seem to have that. No.
Okay, but do you know why the city was leasing the building?
I believe for storage of something.
Right. It was. I think it was when the Bond Street storage facility became a problem. You're not aware that this is a short-term arrangement?
I don't. Like I said, they don't supply the lease or the income statement here.
Okay. I'm looking at the one we had, and it just looks like a portion of yours got clipped off. That's what I was wondering.
Okay, well, let me double check here. No, what they sent in is what I have. Yeah.
Okay. And that was, this is for 2021, December 2021. I'm reading that on your page 15. You see at the top?
Yeah.
This potentially could be post-reference. Would you disagree?
No, let's see here. Income period. Well, it says income statement period December 2020. The top of my 14.
Right, but I'm looking at 15. The heading, it says property MB amount from 12/31/21.
15. Give me a second here. Date from 12/31/21. Yeah, I see that too. But then on the top right, it's at 4/27/21.
Well, I mean, I think it's obvious they have a different rent roll date than a statement date.
Yeah. The period equals December of 2020.
What I'm getting at is, could it be possible that the city has vacated their space?
I guess it's possible.
Okay. And my question to you was, you're not aware that it was a 3-year lease? Would an investor, knowing he had a 3-year lease, even though it expired post-reference, be willing to make a risk like this on their investment, knowing they were opening up a lot of empty space?
Oh, there it is. Yeah, I had to go back. City of Winnipeg, 2018 to 2021. Yeah, 33,000 square feet. The 11th November of 2021, $5.75.
Okay, and then are you also looking at the Unit 4 Province of Manitoba space, 5,000 feet, May of 20 to April of 21.
I don't see that one on here on this one. To May of when?
It's in my evidence.
Okay.
It's not fair bowl to ask you about my evidence. I know that. I just want to make sure we're clear on the impending vacancies in the building.
Sure, that's fair.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson, questions?
No, I have no questions, thank you.
Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions, thank you.
And I also have no questions at this time. Mr. Neufeld?
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just going through this again. So the building, subject building was Pallister Furniture. When it was originally built in 1977, it was a single tenant building. They also had their offices in this building. It became obsolete for them as I guess, the same as everybody in the furniture business. The market preferred imports instead of home built product. It was sold. There were a variety of tenants in it during this time, and so the current owner is making an effort to lure tenants in with better quality accommodations. Has invested several $1 million in capital costs to that effect, and has attracted some tenants, notably Canada Goose, who occupy pretty much a little over half the building. The problem has been the other parts of the building. It has suffered a bad vacancy history, and that was for the last two assessment cycles. In 2019, as you heard, the city of Winnipeg took a 3-year lease. This was for the Vaughan, was it a school or a library flood, where they moved their historical, the archives information, to this site on a 3-year basis. It also had a short-term lease of a year for the provincial for, I believe it was for protective equipment storage, as the province was scrambling for space during COVID. And these are detailed on my page 5. And these spaces expired as indicated. They expired post-reference. But the point is, you have an investor who sees that he has long-term leases with fairly good tenant strength for space of 163,000 square feet, and then 100,000 square feet of problem space. The province eventually vacated 66,000, and the city vacating 33,000. That's on my page 5. So the idea of looking at the statements are interesting, but they present a snapshot in time of temporary performance. The building isn't performing that way. And strange thing is, I'm probably used to saying how bad COVID was for the market. In this case, COVID gave them a temporary relief in terms of being able to rent space that had been on long-term vacancy. So when we looked at this, we had the statement from 20, which had the income from the provincial government and the city, and I don't think we're very far apart with the calculation of potential income from what the assessor has. He's at 1498, and we're at 1466. I've just been reading the statements first time, and I would tend to agree with the assessor's potential income at 1498. I think that's more accurate. However, I think our issue here is vacancy, not the other issues. It's had a chronic vacancy. This is now going on its 9th year of chronic vacancy. So this isn't, typical building. You have a site that's vacant for a couple of months. You get a new tenant in there, and that's life. You have periodic vacancy. If it were not for two issues, call them acts of God or whatever you want to call them, the building would continue to have a vacancy problem, and they had a short-term respite of around 2 years of income, and now it's gone back the other way. If we and I'm just doing this hypothetically because I don't like the numbers we've presented. I would again, if I was using 1,498,000 though, and then ending up at our potential income of 1,290,000 after vacancy, we're indicating a 14% vacancy rate. So that's why I don't want to change that number, because the actual vacancy rate is 38%, and it was, we had historically, and I'm not putting any I mean nothing by that, but the assessor and I were talking about this the other day, about this historical vacancy. 16 from 2016 onward, we're at 40%, and then we go to 100% for 1 year, and then back down to 25% for 2 years, and now we're at 38% again. So if we're applying 14%, I think that's fair. So I would personally rework these numbers on that basis, but in the long run, I don't see a reason to change the NOI, because I think they balance each other off. Again, that would be how I would prepare it. I didn't do this. We end up though with an NOI of 1,059,000 versus the assessor's 1,354, and the very, very large difference is due to not just vacancy but shortfall, because the shortfall doubles the vacancy loss, because it's no one's there to pay the operating costs. And then as a cap, we're not very far apart on the cap side. I think the major difference is, as I was going through the questioning, is that the model doesn't have this ability to take a building that was designed as a single tenant use and embrace that it's gone multi-tenant without the baggage that comes with it. And the baggage that comes with it is redoing space. A modern flex warehouse is always designed with 3,000 foot base, 30 foot columns with 100-foot depth. And the owner can then take this space, they call it flex space for a reason, and just rejig it. Rent to the market in 3,000 foot increments. And it's easy to deal with vacancies. If you have a demand, you can move units over and change it. With a building that's purpose built as a single tenant, you do not have that luxury, because you don't have the locations of the bays to support it. You have it designed for a furniture run, which would generally be bringing in the goods at one end and shipping them out at the other end. So I think that's why our cap rate is better, just on that basis. And we do have pictures of the site, page 12 and 13. I think most of these pictures are of the Canada Goose space, and I think all of them are the Canada Goose space, which, as you can see, there was a lot of money put into this, and it's not showing up in the income statement. So it's just to point out that there was a reinvestment. You can note that, and I'm looking at the picture on page 10, is the installation of air handling equipment. So all these sites became human compatible sites, human density sites, I should say, where you could support under code a greater human count. And on page 11, you can see the bodies. So this is what went into it, is to convert it to a higher density site that can. Why are all these pictures the same? Top of page 14 shows their cafeteria, which again shows you we're dealing with a greater human density site and the air handling equipment. However, the bottom of page 14 shows the empty space, and you'll note there that these are 20-foot posts. And I was mentioning earlier about the 30-foot base. This is one of the problems with redemising the site. Top of page 15 is the old shipping area for the furniture side. And so this is going to be a bit of a challenge to continue to adapt and sell to the market. And so there's a lot of pictures in here, a lot of different product, and a lot of repeats. Well, we got a lot of pictures and duplicate pictures. So in the long run, I would leave this as summary: is we do have a chronic vacancy issue that was only relieved in a very, very short time, and the cap should be higher because of the initial design of this facility. That's my presentation.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Lobenstein? I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. So you only supplied, Mr. Neufeld, the 2019 income expense workup or mailer. You didn't supply the 2020?
Oh, yeah. Well, you'll note that we put a statement on page 1. This was the city's fault, not ours. In 2019, maybe, the city actually put their rented space on a separate roll, all on their own volition. We had no control over it. So at that point, we had a separate roll, and the property manager segregated that space out, the 33,000 feet. And that's why yours puzzled me, because I knew that wasn't the statement that came from that, because that had 100,000 feet missing. So for a while, they ran the statement that in 2019 they ran the statements to have two rolls. We went back to the 19 when they were still combined.
Okay. I guess my only question about that is in the 2020 roll, in my evidence, I know it's not your evidence, their income expense mailer is showing a net operating income of basically almost $1.5 million. And that would be including the vacancy and all the other issues they have, is it's a net operating income. And you're coming in quite a bit lower than that with your workup.
No, and that's why I told you I preferred your income, because I think our issue should be expressed in a vacancy. The 20 statement had the provincial space leased as well as the city base leased, whereas the 2019 did not have the provincial lease in it. So that's why it is lower. And that's why I agree with your workup. But at the same time, I don't think we captured the vacancy adequately, and I think that we probably should have a minimum of a 15% vacancy given the nature of the chronic nature of this. And if I change it to 1.5 million, which I agree with you, at a 15% vacancy, I would be lowering my number, and that's not what we do at the board. We don't lower our number as a surprise. I'm saying it should go lower, but I'm not going to change it.
I guess my main question, part of that question was, but the actual performance of this building does include the vacancy, right? The actual net operating income?
The actual, like on your page 12, the statement you provided in actually has 1.6 million as potential income, not proven income, but potential. And then there's some vacancy in there. So again, this would probably rework a lot of it. This isn't what I would do. honestly, I would redo the entire income statement myself personally, but looking at it, I think starting with your numbers is fair for the board today. I think reworking it would come with a lower NOI, because if you look at, our statement before everything else, we're at net operating income with the vacancies 1,056,000. So at that point, the city is in, the province is not. And our number then is almost identical at 1,059,000 for the NOI with this actual provincial vacancy.
Yep,
So
those are all my questions.
No, I saw the way it's calculated. I just think it would have been presented differently, but I don't see a number changing.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson, questions?
Just in regards to the vacancies that you've noted, and you indicated in regard to the city, the user that is using it for archive record purposes, that have they vacated or are they still there?
I'm not entirely, I know the province is vacated because it was a short-term COVID. And that's, I'm looking at my page 5. So unit 4 has been vacated. 5 could be on holdover. I haven't got an updated on it yet, because the archive problem I don't think has been solved. I can find out in 30 seconds. But this was generated 5/31/20, but that's what I was looking at, the assessor's number as well. Yeah, the province vacated in April of this year, or sorry, last year.
Vacated.
Yeah, but that's unit 4. But unit 5, I think is still in holdover, because you know why I say that is if they weren't in there, they would have canceled the exemption on the property.
Exactly. That's where what my question is. That has been classified as exempt, so they are still there. Okay.
Yeah, they're pretty quick with that sort of. When it comes to that, they're pretty quick.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions.
Mr. McIntyre?
And I have no questions. Thank you.
And my question was asked and answered. Do either of you have a wish for a summation on this property?
No, I don't.
I apologize again, and these are all time constraints. I don't personally make these up anymore, but a lot of familiarity with it. I think we're probably overstating the value, and I don't feel it's fair to change it. We suffer from a chronic vacancy, which had a year and a half of relief by the looks of it, and it's back where it started, and no investor in their right mind would gamble on an investment for a short-term lease, April 1st, 2021, short-term lease that expires 30 days later, which is the big one with the province, 66,000 square feet, knowing that all the restrictions in COVID have now been lifted and there is no more need for this space. I think our number is as fair as we can possibly get it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're going to try and hear one more property before we take a break.
Sure.
This next property is looking somewhat that it's going to be relatively straightforward at 1650 Inkster Boulevard.
Okay.
No, it won't. That's okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Neufeld, what did you say?
No, there are some complications, but that's okay.
Well, I'm going to ask then if we could keep the complications.
Oh, no,
short,
sure.
because the
No
secretary
problem.
take a break. Thank you. Mr. Lobenstein?
Sure.
You'd like-
Yeah. The roll number is 14064151600. At 1650 Inkster Boulevard, we have an assessed value of $7,291,000. You can see that there's been two buildings on this property constructed between 1974 and 2014. Wall heights range from 16 feet to 26 feet. We have a zoning of M2, a land area of 196,130 square feet. The gross floor area is 120,960 square feet for a land to plan of 1.62. Moving to page 2, they are compliant. And page 3, you can see where they're located on Inkster, in the Inkster Industrial Park near Keewatin and Shepherd. And then you get an overhead look at this property, so you can see that it's taking up most of the site plan. They have on page 5, you can see they have frontal loading for this property. You can see the additional part kind of where the red roof is, and near the rear of the building, there's been additions. And page 5, you can just get another view of the, on the bottom of page 5, another view of the property and their access to Inkster as well. So page 6 is the income workup. Mr. Neufeld asked me this, but it is all model driven. We have a leasable area of 120,960 square feet with a rate of $4.47. The potential rent is 54,691 square feet. Again, in this area, we have 4% vacancy. We're applying our expenses and our shortfall to get our net operating income of $484,863. We have a cap rate of 6.65% for this property. To get our capitalized value or our estimated value, $7,291,000. So on page 7, you can see the rent comparables. Due to the size of this property, we've had to sort of move out a little bit for some rent comparables. They're not all right in the Inkster industrial area, although Redwood is, which we've already talked about today. And Sherwin's fairly close to the subject property. So we're looking at leasable areas that range from as high as 175,000 square feet all the way down to 81,000 square feet. And the effective years built range from 1964 all the way up to 2001. And then you can see the net rents on the far column ranging as high as $9 to as low as $3.40 for Sherwin. In terms of the capitalization rate, this one also falls in our 20th to 80th percentile at 6.65%. Moving forward, you can see the mailer for the property. And yes, I feel that's basically it. So we feel the value of $7,291,000 is fair and equitable. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Neufeld?
Yeah, so I take it that we have a 1974 section and a 2014 section. Can you identify those in the picture?
Sure. Second here. So the 2014 section is to the east of the property, so that it would be the if you look on my page 5, the east end of the property would be the red roofed area, I believe, with the front loading docks.
So page 5
5 at the top. Yeah.
Oh, the triangle section.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And the user is. Do you know what they do in this building?
The user is. Give me a sec here. Well, it's a manufacturing company. I don't know what they manufacture.
Okay. Do you know any of the circumstances of the expansion?
I don't know.
Okay. And I'm looking at you did mention it's a relatively low land plan area, and you said this was done by the model. Now, in cases where there's excess land or surplus land, oftentimes you'll see additional land value. I mean, you have the line item here.
Sure.
Being that this suffers from a lack of land, isn't there a deduction for lack of land?
Well, you'd see that more reflected in our rent. That's where the low land to plan would come into effect.
Okay. And your rent, you're not splitting this up into sections of by age, are you?
No, we're not.
So in this case, you're taking the entire building, and okay, and the cap, I guess, it's the model, and you've got no differentiation, A's, B's, or anything, multis or singles. It's just all one grouping. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, we've talked about this. So the model will be looking at age, size, location as the main drivers for cap rate.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how the model can do that when you have, like in our world, we probably have 30 different classifications of industrial buildings, but in the model world, it appears to be just one. Any comment on that?
Well, we were looking at attributes of the building, not so much classifications.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson, questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
And Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions, thank you.
I also have actually, my questions asked and answered. Mr. Neufeld, if you'd like to give us your presentation.
Yes, thank you. So this building is owned and occupied by Richelieu. They're a garment manufacturer, one of Winnipeg's oldest manufacturers. They still manufacture a fair amount of product in Winnipeg on McDermott. Although, like with most people in the trade, you were doing a lot of importing of clothing and distribution more so than actual creation these days. The expansion was a forced expansion. In 2012, the city expropriated land next to their site on Gomez, 121 Gomez, and made shipping next to impossible. With the land they took, this is for the widening of Disraeli, and Gomez at the time was being used as a redistribution center for Mark's Work warehouse. So they had 120,000 feet in there. It wasn't the best space, but it worked for just-in-time shipping. You know what just-in-time means is they're holding inventory for all the Mark stores across the country and have to be able to ship it out on a few days' notice to get it to the store. With the expropriation and the loss of the ability to instantly transfer, they made the decision they needed to move that product line to their other facility on Inkster, and that's why they ended up with this building. So this wasn't a conscious design to have a wonderful industrial building. This was a desperate move to deal with their potential business losses and continue servicing their client. This is what happens in the real world. It's not the nice, pretty cross docks or distribution centers that you see going up. It's just an answer to a problem. The building ended up being just as a very, very basic. And you can see from the front that they managed to get the trailer access on the new side. And they would take in semi-trailers coming in, semi-trailers going out. There's no flow in the building as you would prefer, like, have one side taking in, the other side taking out. Their storage inside is also on most of it's on automated overhead rails for moving the product as quick as possible. When we look at value and how this pertains to value is the idea of it's not the value to the client and his business, it's the value to the market. So who's going to come into this market and take a building like this and be able to use it, one that was built for a specific need, and get a good rent on it with a very low land ratio? And that was the dilemma. And so parts of it are low ceilinged, parts of it have a higher ceiling. So the assessors got that right. Parts are 16, that's exterior, so that's 13 interior. Parts are 26, which is about 23 interior. A rack is 5 feet. So building heights in industrial are multiples of 5 feet. So the old section can do 2 racks, the new section can do 4 racks. That's how utility is determined. The other part about utility is, do you have room on the site to turn around a semi-trailer? Well, you have room on the site to maneuver the trailers into the bays, but it is quite limited to a few at a time. It's not going to be a high traffic site. With our calculation, incidentally, I do like to point out that when I was guessing earlier about 173 Sherwin, 1093 Sherwin, and I said we had the old rent at 295, and I believe it now is at 345. Thankfully, the assessor has corrected me on his page 7. It's at 340. That's Reliance Plastics, and our comparables were then based on just a mathematical calculation where it is 120,000 feet intersect. And because we have a blended ceiling height, we have inferior space and average space. I'm going to call it 13 feet is inferior, 23 feet is average, 29 to 31 is good, clear heights. And our numbers, incidentally, on our page 3 are clear heights, not outside heights. So we actually have Sherwin listed as a 24-foot clear site in our brochure at the bottom of that, and that's at now it's at 340. That was one of the ones we would focus on. Also, 1855 Sargent, which I mentioned, which we've just been through, 330 a foot, an older building with is I think it's 17 clear. So it would be an average of what the subject is. We have a couple on Inkster. 1750 Inkster, I did not collect this rent. This is one that the city provided at 312 a foot. But we do have 1725 Sargent, 103,000 feet at 265 a foot. And you've seen the mountain rates. Mountain 1450 just been through that site, but now you've also seen the quality of the upgrades in that site, and they're at 5 and 525. So they do represent superior space. I think the 367 is good. And I wouldn't disagree that with our correction on the Sherwin rent, that number might come up a bit to about 375. I haven't done a recalculation because the differences are small, but I think that's a serious consideration if the board wants to make a change on that basis to 375. Again, same issues, vacancy calculated the same way. Market, real non-recoverables exist, shortfall, it's what they're paying. The model is a fixed number and irrelevant. And we've capped it at 7. And the reasons, obviously the 2 major reasons are extremely low land building ratio, which means the adaptability for the future is low, and that's a cap rate problem. And we have additions, different ceiling heights. So it would go high, not low. And that's my presentation.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Lovenstein?
I have no questions.
And Ms. Anderson?
I have no questions, thank you.
And Mr. McIntyre?
And I have no questions, thank you.
That's not promising.
Let's have a couple of quick questions, Mr. Neufeld. As it was pointed out, the triangle section of this building is a pink You were the assessor stated 1974.
Sorry, you faded away there.
The triangle section of this building, I believe you stated was the 1974 portion.
No, the triangle is the new portion.
It's the new portion.
Yes.
And do you know the square footage on that?
I can get it in 1 second. I was just looking that up, as a matter of fact. My computer did a reboot in the middle of this hearing, so. Sorry, I'm just going back to look for, property attributes. Okay, we got it here. Okay, the old section is 70,000 feet. And then there was, I see. Okay, so there's actually 3 sections here. Looking at the building, you have the big square section where the red dot is on is 70,000. Then below that, there's 2 little sections that were added on, and these would be the north, at the bottom of the picture. That is 18,750 square feet. The 2014 section, which is the triangle, is 32,210 square feet.
And so the 70,000 square feet is the 1974 section?
32,210, sorry, 70,000 is 1974, yes.
And you've used an overall rent of $367 for the building?
That's correct.
Right.
And I looking at our calculation number, I mean, it'd take me 10 seconds to open this up. I think it should be a bit higher, just because we should have updated that Sherwin rent, and it should be probably 375.
Okay, that's all my questions, Mr. Neufeld.
Yes, that does change the NOI to 368,295, a value of 5,261,000.
Do either of you have a wish for a summation on the property?
I do not.
Mr. Neufeld?
Again, this what you're seeing today are not great buildings. These are working buildings. There are at least 30 different classifications in a property management or a brokerage firm as to what an industrial property is. And I think we're seeing the problems in the model where all of these are attempted to be captured in one style. And manufacturing differs from warehousing. Thank you.
I thank you both. And at this time, we are just going to take a 30-minute break.
Okay.
How long?
30 minutes.
30 minutes.
I'm just wondering if the secretary is in conversation with another hearing room where I'm supposed to be. There's a single property.
Okay, which room are you supposed to be in this afternoon?
Pardon me?
Boardroom A with
I don't know. I just have it written down here. It's 874 Marion.
Yeah, it's the only one. So we can
okay.
definitely speak to Stephen about that. Were you supposed to be first?
Okay. All right, that's fine. Yeah, I don't know when I'm scheduled on it. So as long as you let them know where I am.
Okay, I will do that.
Thanks.
No problem. Okay, so we will reconvene at
105.
1:05. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to call this hearing back to order, and we will be proceeding to 11 Plymouth Street.
Okay. The roll number is 14064500600 11 Plymouth Street. We have an assessed value of $6,796,000. Before we get started here, I just want to talk about the income workup on page 6. You can see the workup there. And if you look to the bottom where it says capitalized value, we have $9,561,000. Then we have an estimated market value of $6,796,000. So the $6,796,000 was appealed. So I did a little research into this to see what happened. And what's going on is that this building's been recently purchased and going through some major renovations. So currently there's an assessor working on this building, bringing it up to date. So you're looking at a value that they were potentially working on for that $9,561,000. So unfortunately, that's what, when making the brief, that's what the brief captured. It didn't capture the actual assessed value that was appealed. So if you will bear with me for a moment, I can go through the actual numbers to get to the assessed value. So we have a blended rate of $4.46 a square foot. It is a leasable area of 121,500 square feet. So we're getting a potential rent of $541,890. We're applying a vacancy of 4%, which works out to $21,676. We have expenses of 3%, which works out to $15,606. Shortfall rate of $3.85. So that works out to $18,711. And that will give us our net operating income of $485,897. We have a capitalization rate of 7.15. And this gives us our capitalized value or estimated market value of $6,796,000. I know I was very confused when I first saw this, so I hope that's alleviated any confusion for anybody else.
I will ask Mr. Neufeld at this time. He did not file a brief.
Yeah, I think we had known that there's some issues in happening, and so I guess the only question I have, and I'm looking at page 6, is that the $9,561,000 has been calculated based on the numbers above.
It's a working value at the moment. That's the problem. It's not for sure the value that's going to be going on.
Do you have an effective date on it?
Again, all these are working values. So right now, the overall value year built is 1974.
No, but when is this going to be applied? What taxation year?
Again, I'm not too sure about all that right now. Like I said, I don't know when we're going to be issuing a supplementary for this.
Yeah, well, that's kind of important. Well, would it be based on an occupancy permit, perhaps?
Perhaps, yes.
So if I was looking up 11 Plymouth and looking to see if we have one that was issued in Amazon, this might give us some direction. So I've got Amazon warehouse, September 17th, 2021 was the occupancy permit.
Mm-hmm.
So and then they have another one for another section, August 25th, 21. So we're likely looking at a 2022 number.
I would guess, there is a lot of permits out for this property.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of work done on it. So, I mean, that's why I'm saying that value is a working value. Unfortunately, that got in there. So I wish, honestly, Mr. Neufeld, I wish I could say for sure when it was going to be coming out, but I just can't. I don't know.
Right, but it's more than likely it's going to encompass 2023 forward, is it?
I would say there's a good chance it could encompass 2023. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess we sort of suspected that after it was filed that something would happen, and so there wasn't much point debating something that's going to be replaced.
Right.
Okay. And you don't know at this time whether or not they're going to bring in the parking lot on Burroughs into the valuation.
I know it was part of the purchase. At this point, it's not in the valuation, but it could be into the future depending on how far they expand out and what they plan on doing with that property.
Well, yeah, but it's a rented site, and the rent includes the parking lot. So I'm just assuming, will there be a move to merge roles?
I would assume there would be a move to merge roles. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and Madam Chair. Person, I mean, it's. I guess there's not much point debating this further. It's going to be replaced, so probably makes sense to confirm it and move on.
All right, thank you. I want to go back to Mr. Lobenstein. Sorry, we were. Mr. Neufeld started questioning. Did you say what you wanted to say in regards to?
I think it was important that we had that conversation and that we move forward with the confirmation, knowing that there's going to be major changes to this building.
All right, thank you. Ms. Anderson, did you have any questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
Mr. McIntyre, questions?
And I have no questions, thank you.
Thank you. I also have no questions. So, Mr. Neufeld, you are wishing to confirm?
That's correct.
And I thank you for that. We will move on then to 329 Cumberland Avenue. And Mr. Lobenstein, whenever you are ready.
Sure, just give me a moment. Okay, the roll number is 1305278210. It's 329 Cumberland Avenue. The assessed value is $1,586,000. We have the number of buildings is 2. We have 15 premises in here, which is substantial. And 1 to 2 stories. We have effective years built ranging from 1908 to 1923. Wall heights range from, we have 1 foot on there up to 12 feet. And the land area is 18,000 square feet. The gross floor area is 23,400 square feet, and the leasable area is 19,178 square feet for a land to plan of 2.31. So we'll take a look. This is in Cumberland. It's pretty much in the center of the city, near downtown. You get an above view on page 4. You can see what it looks like in terms of the site plan. Page 5 gives you a better view of what it looks like from an overhead angled look. You can see it's a 2-story building. There's a wheelchair ramp, as you can see, leading from the parking lot. And it does front Cumberland. So there is a parking lot that generates income on this property. The stall count is 24. This is on my page 6. We were applying a monthly net unit rent of $68 for an annual rent of $19,584. That net income is then capitalized at 4.5% to get an estimated value of $435,000. And then we are looking at the premises in this loft warehouse. They range from 289 square feet all the way up to 2,325 square feet. The net rents range from, I guess, as low as $4.99 up to $7.75 a square foot for a potential rent of $127,471. For loft warehouses, we're applying a vacancy of 12.5%. We apply our 3% expenses, $3.85 for shortfall, and an overall capitalization rate of $8.6%. You get our estimated value of $1,151,000. You can see on page 8 the rent comparables in the market. They're all on McDermott and Williams, so they're fairly close proximity to the subject property. Years built are similar, wall heights are quite low, and the leased areas are fairly similar to the subject property as well. And so we get a range of rents from as low as $8 all the way up to $11.42 a square foot. On page 9, you can see the combined income streams or the summary of them to get our overall value. And for the industrial cap rates, they range between 5.5 and 7.45 for the 20th to 80th percentile. This is far outside the 80th percentile due to the age of this property and the year built. You can see on page 12, there is an income expense mailer where it's partially owner occupied, and they ticked off its gross income. They have the rent roll on page 13. And on page 17 and 18 and 19, you can just see some pictures of the property that was in a brochure when it was being advertised. So we feel that the value of $1,586,000 is fair and equitable and should be confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Neufeld?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just looking for my place here. So the calculations, page 7 and 6 and 7 were then all generated by the model.
Yes, that's correct.
And you've got a different cap rate on parking. Is it parking on a separate title?
No, it's not.
And as I'm reading this, I'm seeing potential income of approximately $147,000. And I'm wondering if you took a look at their statements.
Well, moving down to their statements, like I said, it's partially owner occupied. They say it's gross income. They said they have a net operating income of $94,595.
Right.
And there is a parking income of $44,625.
Well, I'm reading. I'm just looking at it. 94,000 income, 128 in expenses, 223 in income, including the parking, for 94 net. Of course, they're including interest of $19,000.
Right.
So I was just doing the math here, and it looks to be. I came up with 108,873 as expenses, and 114,500 as income.
Okay.
And you've got obviously some different numbers in your calculation here of. So it's getting at 147,000 as potential.
That's correct.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering if a strange property. This admittedly is bits of a stranger property. If something like that, their statement might better reflect performance.
I mean, it is a strange property. I don't deny that. They have like as you mentioned, 114,000 for net operating income. We're a little higher at 118. So in this situation, I would say the model predicted fairly closely, maybe a little high.
Well, what do you know exactly what this site does? What's the nature of their business?
It seems like they have a lot of different artists in here. I see fireside design, arts accessibility, craft museum,
Right.
So, yeah.
Based perhaps to artisans and craftspeople.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite common with these loft warehouses to have a lot of that, to rent out small spaces to artists.
Yeah, and in that basis, are the incomes necessarily all due to rental revenue, or do you know if they're business related?
I would say it's rental revenue, just looking at their tenant list there.
Okay. Sorry, I'm. This isn't the first time we've ever dealt with this property, so it is a bit unusual. And the cap rate being outside your range, your 80th percentile, is that just for the age, or you have any category to relate to, like an artisan's loft, shared studios or some sort like that?
Sure, yeah. Loft warehouses would drive a higher cap rate, mostly due to their age, but also, the attributes of the building as well.
I guess what I'm trying to say is you got a building that appears to be rented to small businesses dealing in decorating and artisans. Is this a good investment?
For somebody, it might be. I'm not too sure. I mean, we've put a fairly high cap rate on it at 8.6%. So, I mean, I would agree this building holds much higher of a risk to an investor than some of the other buildings we looked at today.
Yeah, okay. Those are my questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson, questions?
My only question is, I have two questions. Your blended lease rate for the loft warehouse, is it $664?
You can't really do a blended, unfortunately. I know we blended it here, but parking lot sort of has its own rates there. They're sort of different. So, I mean, we put it all together just to kind of show you what it would look like blended, but really it should just be adding the two capitalized values together to get your value.
Okay. So I was more meaning the overall.
Oh, sorry, the overall.
In the warehouse.
Oh, yeah, my mistake.
Okay.
I didn't calculate that out, but I can do that.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
And have you visited this building?
I have never visited this building. No.
Okay.
Yeah, $6 and I guess 65 cents rounded.
Okay. Thanks. Those are all my questions.
Thank you. Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions, thank you.
I just have a couple of quick questions. So you did not inspect, but do you have any information in your notes when it was last inspected or the condition of the building?
Well, in terms of the condition, I could look up some permits to see if any renovations have happened. And then just give me a moment here on the notes. Looks like the last time somebody was in there was 2019, and they didn't mention the condition of the building. They just went to go basically see tenants that vacated and put in new tenants.
All right, thank you. And in regards to your cap rate, you indicated that was model driven because it's outside your range on your chart, so you didn't change it yourself.
Nope, this is outside the 28th percentile, but it is model driven.
Okay. And that's also in regards to the parking lot at 4.5.
It would be model driven as well, yes.
Okay. Thank you. That's all my questions. Mr. Neufeld, if you'd like to give us your brief.
Thank you. I'm reading the brief, and I think that the person who prepared it went post-reference, and we can't do that, obviously. The post-reference income is substantially it differs. It's calculated at 77,000, and that's on the gross basis. The one that we're looking at that the assessor provided, which by the way we never had access to it because this is I think they changed control of the organization. So I'm looking at the assessor's page 12. Appears to me that 114,500 was the net operating income with some vacancy in there. I guess there's difference in rentable area. The assessor mentioned that the owner is in there, but if you note, the owner is occupying 289 square feet, which is the property manager's office, and it's not rentable area. They do have a different square footage listed, and makes perfect sense considering the style of operation. 18,163 leasable, and the assessor has 19,178. I would just looking at this and I was looking at the assessor's page 12 and 13, and they've got parking income, rental income, costs, take out the interest, including vacancy. Looks to me like 114,500. I would just like amend our request to NOI of 114,500 at a cap rate of 9%, and that value is 1,272,000. I think that's what the evidence shows on actual earnings, and that's a reasonable number. You know, because we have a gross building and we do have existing vacancies, we've already accounted for the shortfall, the non-recoverables, and everything else, and therefore 114.5 is a decent, supportable NOI. The cap rate difference is well. Obviously it's an older building. The assessor's at 8.6. I think the problem with their cap rate is that this is such a strange product that you won't see anything resembling this in the investment market. And I haven't done the research on it, but generally, I mean, I've been involved with appraising a lot of properties like this. They don't sell based on their income. They tend to be sell based on the overall cost to purchase, and then they get leased out to smaller parties as art studios. We've done several, 75 Albert, there's one on Arlington I was involved with. The investment isn't the way to go. I think the proper way to appraise this is probably direct comparison, and you know, how much per square foot for similar buildings, because there are a number of these. I haven't done the research, so all I can say is based on the evidence I see, 1,272,000, which is actual income, 114.5 at a cap rate of 9%. That's my presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Lobenstein, questions?
Well, since Mr. Neufeld changed his number, he took away all my questions, so I have no questions.
So it's perfect, is what you're saying.
It's changed. I just the things I wanted to point out, you corrected.
Ms. Anderson, questions?
Yeah, just a question in regards to that then. 1,272,000, that's what you came to, right? That's the request.
Right. Yeah.
And also the parking then?
Yeah, the parking's included in that income.
Oh.
Yeah, and there is no such thing as a blended rate for parking and and building, because it's more than likely the tenants of the building are renting all the space, and it part and parcel of their occupancy costs. And so to call it a separate cap rate is it states that you have two different roles, two different titles. You don't. It's one title. There's one cap rate.
Okay, so you're rolling it all in. That's the
Right, yeah,
bottom line
sorry.
number. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Thanks.
Mr. McIntyre, questions?
And I have no questions, thank you.
And Mr. Neufeld, could I have your revised NOI again, please?
114,500.
All right. And did you have a chance to visit this property?
I've been in it in some of the shops only, and that went back a few years. I haven't been in it recently.
Can you speak to the condition?
It was typical for its age. It's not restored. It's in situ. Is that the Latin for it? As it lies. It's older and shows its age. You'll note that the expenses, I'm looking at the expenses for repairs. They tell me an awful lot about the building, that they're always doing a lot of repair work for the older age. Not good quality, to be fair.
All right, I thank you. Do either of you have a wish for a summation on this property?
No, I don't.
Mr. Neufeld?
Yeah, I think that, as I mentioned, this should be probably done on a direct comparison approach, because that's how these sell. My number works out to $54 a square foot, and that's on the high end range of loft warehouse in Winnipeg. So I think that's a reasonable number. Thank you.
I thank you. We will move on to the last property on the docket at 150 Fort Street. Mr. Lobenstein, whenever you're ready to present.
Sure. The roll number is 12093080000. 150 Fort Street. The assessed value is $2,106,000. There's 3 separate buildings, although they are connected. Number of premises is 6. Number of stories are 2. They have an effective year built of 1951, and the wall heights range from 12 to 16 feet. Now we have a zoning multiple use on here. The land area is 21,082 square feet. There is a basement area that's 6,426 square feet. We have a leasable area of 21,134 square feet and a gross floor area of 25,893 square feet for a land to plan of 1.62. We'll move down to page 3, so you can see where it's located in Fort Street. It is somewhat unusual to have an industrial property located directly downtown. And then you get an overhead view of the property. You can see the 3 separate buildings. So you can kind of just tell by the coloration of the roof, and you can see the site plan as well. Another few more pictures are on page 5. You get an idea of the layout. It's right fronted onto Fort Street there, I believe, and you can see the parking that's in the rear of the property. And also, it seems like there's access off York, and there's a back lane as well. Or you have to access the back lane from York, I believe. So you see on page 5 the income workup. You can see all the premises. I'll give you the blended rate in just a moment. It'd be $9.07 a square foot rounded. We're applying a 6.5% vacancy or 3% expenses and $3.85 for the shortfall. And for this building as well, we have an 8% capitalization rate. So we capitalize the net operating income of $168,515 to get our estimated value of $2,106,000. For rent comparables, there's not a lot in the area because it is downtown. So we've branched out. The two closest ones would be the Aaron comparables, but they'd just be down Portage a ways from the subject property. Then we have one at Spruce, and then two in McPhillips. So I guess McDermott might be Aaron would be the closest one. And you can see that the wall heights range from 17 all the way up to 19 feet. The year builds range from 1977 all the way up to 2007. And the rents range from as low as $6.25 a square foot to $11.75 a square foot. Again, on page 9, you can see that the 8% rate falls out of the 20th to 80th percentile. That's on page 9. Also in the addenda on page 11, you can see the rental revenue. They have rental revenue of $170,000 and recoveries, and their expenses as well. And then they have their net operating income. They're claiming at $31,000, which is odd considering they have rental revenue of $170,000. But nonetheless, that's what they're claiming on their income expense mailer. And then on page 14, unfortunately, you're going to have to rotate it. Or 13 is the rent roll. And maybe zoom in, hopefully. Right. So you can see the rent roll on page 14, and you can see some of the rents that are actually in the building. So that being said, we feel that the market value, sorry, give me a sec here. What is going on? Oh, perfect. Okay. The market value of $2,106,000 is fair and equitable and should be confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Neufeld?
I'm just wondering, I mean, you did note that there was parking income and you don't have a revenue stream for it. Are you working with the assumption that it was for the tenants?
Oh, I never noted there was income. I just mentioned that there was parking at the back of the rear of the building. Did the income and expense mailer state that there was parking income? I didn't see it. Okay, there is. Sorry, there is. Yeah, you're right on the second line there. Yeah, I didn't notice that.
I'm not trying to point out anything to you to look for an increase, but you're aware that, of course, they have an Avis rent-a-car in there, and
yeah, I see that now. Yep.
And they need the parking. Okay. And the rent roll does indicate that the tenants are on your page 13, that the tenants are the ones doing the parking in there.
Okay, excellent. Well, it's good to know. Thanks.
So it was included. I was just wondering. Now on that topic though.
Oh, I see that now. Yeah, you're right.
So their potential rent as full in the statement provided to you was $170,768, and you're at 190. Sorry, I had it here. 191,635. Any reason, anything to suspect that their landlord's potential rent is faulty?
No, I mean, I'd say their gross potential rent is lower than ours. Ours is at 191. So yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's faulty or anything. I mean, when you include their parking, which we're not, they're at 170. It's a little closer, but no.
And their vacancy in the statement is 52%.
Yep.
And your model is at 6.5.
Yep, that's correct.
And you mentioned that you call this an industrial use in the city. I'm just wondering if it was, you look over the tenant roster, that might be not quite maybe incorrect. I'd suggest to you that we have a rental car, and we have 2 small offices, and we have storage space. There's no industrial use here, are there?
So that's a fair point in terms of the tenants, but we don't. We look more at the attributes of the building to see. So this does look more like an industrial building in terms of basically the wall heights, how it's situated, the openness of this building, and I think there's some overhead doors as well, although I'm not showing any in pictures, unfortunately.
Well, and you mentioned a blended rent of $907, and they do have Avis at $19 and Western Canada at $10.50 or 10, but the rest are all gross rents, which are well below there. You see that on your page whatever your statement rent roll page. We have the same one. Do you think in this case the blended rate makes any sense whatsoever?
Again, the blended rate. This is a model rate, so we're looking at the market. So no, this is what we're looking at in terms of buildings that are similar age and size. So
right. So
this building is not performing, and I would say as good as some of those other ones. I would agree.
Yeah, I for example was looking at some of these rents, and I'm trying to match them up here that you have listed in the $10 range. And these unit sizes are, I was looking at, sorry, here, we got, I can't even read this. Let me see. Well, I think one that you have at 2,100 feet at 1076 net appears to be actually $3.46 gross when I look at page at the rent roll. In this case, would you think that the input to the model may not have reflected the difference between the storage space and the office space?
That's possible, yeah.
Okay. The vacancy of 6.5%, this is based on Flex Warehouse. What would that vacancy rate be if this were, I don't know what you would call it, office and storage? Retail office and storage, I suppose it might be different, wouldn't it?
Yeah, they would have a different vacancy rate. What that would be, I don't know.
Okay, so you don't know the vacancy rate, for example, for miscellaneous office in the downtown area?
I don't.
Okay. The cap rate then being based on industrial parameters, would that then differ if for example you looked at it in terms of office and storage? Would if you coded it differently, would it come in differently?
I would suspect it would, yes. If you have a different type of property that you're trying to value in terms of office or retail, they would have different cap rates.
Now, they did have a significant vacancy loss. Your NOI is 168,000. Theirs is 31,000, and we can see that the rent rolls they lost a lot of tenants. I'm just wondering when you try to stabilize these things, does the model ignore that COVID ever happened?
No, we've made adjustments for COVID in terms of our expenses. Definitely went up 1% from last cycle. So, I mean, we understand that COVID happened. Every building is affected differently, and in all fairness, and I think you'd agree with this, the industrial sector was not hit very hard by COVID for the most part.
But I think we're discussing that this isn't industrial. Now on your page, I'm just trying to look for your overhead view. You've clipped it out again. You've just focused in so much here. I'm going to have to refer to my evidence, page 1. You are aware that this building is connected with the octagon-shaped building next door?
Is it?
Yeah, 125 Gary.
How is it connected?
Same ownership. And
I thought you meant physically.
Oh no! I'm just
like, do they have a tunnel going underneath it?
No. But for example, when you look at the rent roll and the tenant list, you'll note that Western Canada Lottery is also in the building next door, 125 Gary.
Okay.
And that the storage spaces that are now empty, for example, the one marked Ceridian, vacant, that Ceridian vacated 150 Fort, and therefore they vacated their storage space?
I did not know that. No.
Okay, no, I understand that. I was just, you know, I didn't know if you were aware that this is the storage building for 125 Gary. The one building, like
Okay.
not the Avis building, but the other building.
Right. One of the buildings there is storage. Okay.
Is storage for it, and when the building next door suffers a 54% vacancy, it's bound to impact the service building, the accessory use building. Okay, sorry. That's fine. Those are my only questions.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson, questions?
My question relates to the leasable area that you've noted in your workup of 21,134 square feet. So where does that number come from? Where do you get that number?
That's a good question. Mostly that would probably come from over the years. This building's changed in terms of its premises. So it probably would come from the rent roll mostly. So let's see here. So we try to match the premises as much as we can to the rent roll when we do inspections. So that is probably where it would mostly come from. But as has been indicated, it gets changed quite often.
So when was the last inspection of this building? Do you have that?
Yes, so the rent roll is 18,082 square feet, and we're at 21,000. The last time this building was inspected.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch how many square feet? 18,000?
Yeah, the rent roll is 18,082 square feet.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're a little higher on the rent, or on the leasable area.
Yeah. Okay. And the last inspection?
I will check that out right now. Yeah, it's been some time. I would say like 2011 looks like the last time somebody was in there.
Okay. Okay. And my last question relates to the vacancy applied. So that vacancy loss applied of 6.5 is model generated. When you look at the property and the history of it, does it cause reflection in regards to how that is applied, the 6.5?
Well, I think that's the important thing that you said, the history of the property.
Mm-hmm.
So if there is a chronic history problem, we would definitely look at changing the cap rate. Is that the case for this property? I'm not too sure. I haven't taken a look at the income expense mailers going far back. Mr. Neufeld mentioned COVID might have been the effect of this, so that would be pretty recent vacancy. So
Right.
That wouldn't be so much considered chronic. So that's something that we'll have to look at now that this has come up.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks for your presentation. Those are all my questions.
Thank you. Mr. McIntyre, questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
Thank you. I just have one question in regards, Mr. Lobenstein, page 7 of your brief, your rent comparables.
Mhm.
Did you choose those, or was that model?
Oh no, these are chosen by me.
All right. So I'm just wondering, did you consider age at all? Because, or was it strictly size? Because these are all from 77 through to 2007, and the building is actually 1951 effective.
Yep, that's correct. So I mean, basically, size, age, and area are important to look at. Same with wall height. So those are the things I considered. In terms of getting locations, due to where this is located, it was hard to find properties kind of in a more central area. That's kind of what I was going for. So thinking that a renter in Erin is kind of dealing with the same problems as a renter in the Fort area in terms of traffic and accessibility. So that was my thinking in picking my rent comparables.
All right, thank you. Ms. Steenfeld? The floor is yours.
Oh, good. I'm just trying to figure out some of this myself here. So as you gathered during my question, this is an accessory building to 125 Gary, which is the octagon-shaped building to the left of the red dot. And 125 Gary also has a parkade, and that's the square structure immediately south of it, an attached parkade. The income and expenses for the two are mixed. Colliers took over management 2015 and have been struggling with providing a clear set of financial statements. They do get better every year as we try to take what was in the past a handwritten informal statement and turning it into a professional statement. That's just one of the factors of our job. Now, you'll note that we're using $141,242 as income, and the calculation on that was done below, looking at revenue as full and then subtracting expenses, because the revenue, as stated on page 3, requires some work on it. That math doesn't add up. Oh, okay. Sorry. In any event, the 141,000 is fairly comparable to the calculation on the property manager's statement on our page 3, which was 143,000. So we did have some variances in the calculations. You notice that there were some adjustments below that we factored in onto the top line. Now, the parking income stated at 27,000 is already claimed in 125 Gary. And it was assessed already on that parking income because it's same ownership, and this was their parking. So that's why we weren't really looking at it, because it's already been accounted for. So 143,000, it was for purpose of working this out today, was our calculation. Rather than using the approximate 50% vacancy as shown on page 3, the middle, we put a stabilized number at 25%. Typically, it's been hovering around 20 to 25%, and with Ceridian leaving, was a major blow. That just happened in, I think, end of 2019, so it impacted the statements. And that their space has not been refilled yet. But it had performed better than that in the past, which is why we went to 25%, not 50%. Have left allocation for non-recoverables, of which there's a load of them in there. Again, now the shortfall calculation, you notice we have a different square footage. And the reason for this is that we are using a different format for measuring, in that if you look at the rent roll on page 5, not all of this space is deemed to be rentable. And incidentally, this is not impacting our value because we're working on a cash statement, not a per square foot statement. But for example, Avis Rent-A-Car, of course, at I'm looking for, sorry, their square footage 471 is clear that that's area. Bell Canada at 100 square feet below it is not rentable area. That's just an allocation for an antenna. So it's not actual area. And then there's another line item entry, and I'm just looking for it. I believe it's Ceridian has a stated rent of storage and parking. Actual land is included in the amount. So with the 13,000 we are taking from our property manager's statements, and I don't have the background for you, but again, it's irrelevant because we're using the actual income, and the net income on statements is $31,000, and there's no improper expenses there. They all belong. It's just a super high vacancy. We're using an NOI, not $31,000, but $77,000. We are stabilizing it. Cap rate at 9%, and that is to reflect the multi-use capability issues with it. It's essentially a garage, storage, and a couple of smaller offices, but mostly it's a storage building. And it's essentially, this should be treated as land value, not as an income producing property. It's a holding for land, so it's going to be the value. Essentially, we should be looking at the value of the land less the cost of demolition as a alternate, as the appropriate use. But it is earning positive income right now. I think we've done a pretty good job here of dealing with a building that's actually earning $31,000 and adjusting it upwards to $77,000 to reflect a prior period. And I said, I think the cap of 9, I think it speaks to itself on quality and age and usage, and the lack that this is not the highest, necessarily the highest and best use. It's all an interim use. So 860,000. You know, I don't think our workup is perfect, but I think the number is perfect. That's my presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Lobenstein, questions?
I have no questions.
Ms. Anderson
I have no questions.
and Mr. McIntyre?
And I have no questions, thank you.
I also have no questions. Do either parties have a wish for explanation on the property?
No, I don't.
I was just thinking that's 4 balls I gotta walk. The properties you've heard today are mostly very different properties, and not traditional industrial, and they've been coded as industrial. And I think you've been hearing the same tune out of me for almost all of these, and that's not because I only sing one tune. It's because these aren't your typical industrial buildings, and you have to look at them on an individual basis. And they do not fall in with typical market practices. I think the assessor was accurate when he said industrial did not suffer as much during COVID. As a matter of fact, some industrial performed over and above normal amounts in COVID, but not the ones we heard today. And to say that we reassess every 2 years by law, but we've chosen to ignore COVID and its impact on the marketplace is wrong as far as the legislation. Values went down. Assessments should go down. And the next reassessment, they'll go back up. And that's the design. And I've been rather concerned this year that, and I'm not blaming any board, it's just what you have to listen to, that we're not remembering that markets will go up and markets will go down. This is a downtime. That's my present. That's what I wanted to say in summation. Thank you all for your patience today.
Thank you. All the items on the docket today have been heard, and this hearing is adjourned. But I would like to say thank you to Mr. Lobenstein and also to you, Mr. Neufeld, for your briefs today and your time and expertise. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Bye-bye.